Hey, what's up? It's Cute What If this side. Today we will be seeing, what if Deku got mysterious power? Now before we move ahead with the fic, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for future what ifs like this. The wind started to die out as everyone in the field was in awe of what they just witnessed. The dude threw the over 2 kilometers. One student yells as he was in shock. Forget that guy made a damn tornado from just running in a circle. Another student yells, most of them were stunned, at something that has been considering logically impossible was done by one of their new classmates. Finally, he decided to show what he can really do. Ochako says, relieved that Izuku was finally taking this seriously. Yeah, he was cutting it a bit close there. Especially pulling a stunt like stealing Sensei's wallet as a prank. Mina says, also feeling relieved. One girl, with long earlobes that were shaped into earphone jacks, turns to the two and looked at them with a raised eyebrow. Wait, you two aren't surprised by what that guy just did? The girl asks, surprised at the two lack of shock from just happened. Nah, me, Acha-chan and Zuku-kun grew up together and the two of us have seen him do all sorts of crazy things over the years with his quirk. Mina says with Ochako nodding to her words. Yeah, but we've never seen him do that before. That's a new move. Ochako says as Mina looks at her. Yeah, I wonder where he learned that from. Mina says, with the two girls now thinking about just how Izuku was able to do that. Impressive, to use his speed in such a creative way to increase the flight and speed of his toss with wind is something I could never dream of thinking or doing since I didn't think I can achieve that speed he has. He truly is a great rival. Ada says, with his fingers on his chin. Well, it wasn't a glorious feat, unlike my laser shot. The French dude says as he twirls around and does a dramatic pose at the end. While most of the students thought what Izuku did was awesome, one of them had his jaw on the floor in complete shock at what he just saw. What the hell was that? He had never did that before, plus his finger broke. His damn quirk is sonic speed, so if he could make a damn tornado like that, it shouldn't have shot the like that. He's up to something. Bakugou thought as he stares at Izuku and sees the greenlet, blue highlight teen clutching his fist and sees one of his fingers was broken. This was fishy, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it. Bakugou says to himself, his palms start to pop off mini explosions right before he jets straight toward Izuku. Hey Deku, tell me how you did that or you're dead nerd. Bakugou yells, charging to Izuku. Izuku rolls his eyes and shifts into a fighting stance, ready for what Bakugou dished out. But before the explosion quirk user could even get close enough to Izuku, he was suddenly wrapped in Aizawa's scarf, and the explosions he was sparking had stopped immediately. WW what the hell? Why's your scarf so damn strong? Bakugou asks as Aizawa was behind him, with his hair and scarf floating in the air while his irises were glowing red. That's because it's a capture weapon I use when I'm out on patrol. It's made from carbon fiber and a special metal alloy. That way it'd be damn strong for the villains I fight to escape from it. Aizawa says, staring at Bakugou with a firm yet dangerous glare at him, daring him to try and do what he was doing. Bakugou tries to use his quirk to blow the scarf off him, but he found that his quirk wasn't responding to his commands as they usually do. My quirk ... Why's my quirk not working? Bakugou asks, with Aizawa raising his eyebrow at what the boy asked. Didn't you hear what Problem Speed Child said? My quirk nullifies all emitter and transformation types but not transformation types. Stand down, it'd be wise not to make me use my quirk too much in one day. It gives me dry eye. Aizawa says. Too bad, that sounds like one hell of a quirk to have. Most of the students thought in unison but were unaware that they thought the same thing. Aizawa's quirk deactivates as his hair falls back to its original style, and he lets go of Bakugou and retracts his scarf. We've waited enough time now. Let's move on to the next test. Aizawa says as he moves back to the gym to conduct the final 3 tests. Soon after he did, the student follow him. Izuku walks past Bakugou who just standing in the same place he was restrained by his teacher as he was thinking back at the times Izuku had beaten him in just about any type of competitive activates you can think of. And each other, Izuku had come out on top with some cases where he won but felt that Izuku wasn't really going full out like he was. And that was really pissed him off. You damn Deku. Bakugou thought as he grits his teeth and clutched his fist in utter anger. Izuku walks up to his friends with Mina and Ochako going over to him while everyone else watched Bakugou slunk back to where he was standing with those who were near him moving back from him, either out of fear that he'd turn his anger onto them or that they thought that he had anger issues and really didn't want to talk to him. You okay Deku? Ochako asks. Izuku just nods. Yeah. Bakugou didn't even leave a scratch on. That is if he could even if Aizawa-sensei didn't interfere. Izuku says but he then hisses from the sharp pain he felt from his broken finger and the girls heard his hiss. Mina looks to his fist and sees the broken finger. Midor, your finger. It's purple and not the right way. Mina says as Ochako looks down to Izuku's hand and sees the broke finger as she places her hands to her mouth in shock. It's fine, just broke my finger in that toss. Izuku says, trying to reassure that everything was okay. Are you feeling alright? Okako asks, concerned about how her best friend was feeling. Not really. It just stings every time I move it but I can manage it. Just hope we can finish these last tests before I pass out of the pain. Izuku says. Okay, if you think you can, we'll let you do it but if it gets too much of you to take, we're taking you to the nurse's office and get you fixed. even if we aren't finished with our test. Got it? Mina asks as she points at Izuku and stares at him with a firm stare. Sure, no problem, Izuku says, holding his hands up. Stop talking. We still got things to do and you're wasting daylight, Aizawa says, causing the trio to walk a bit faster to the gym. Insert music, time trials by Hyper Potions. Once the class had reached the gym, they were tasked to do the most sit-ups they could do in one sitting. At first, most of them could handle the task, but soon, all the girls quit, with Mina being the last one to quit of the girls. The boys continued on the task with little difficulty, but soon, most dropped out due to them not having the stamina or the endurance of this. Izuku, Bakugou, some spiky red-haired kid, and a teen with white and red hair were the last ones standing, but Izuku stood out on top thanks to the training All Might had him do over the course of 10 months. And the stamina he had built over the years. This test did bring Izuku some difficulties due to his broken finger as he used it to do the toe touches, but he fought through the pain. Unsurprisingly, Izuku, who curled into a witch, frightened most of the students. Mina and Ochako were the top 3 in this test thanks to years of their flexibility, yoga lessons, and dance classes that made this test too easy of them, but one student did reach the top 5. Just behind them, and it was an invisible girl who seems to process flexibility limbs as well. This was Izuku's dream test. He smoked the others in this as he lived of long-distance runs. While some did last longer than most, like Momo using a scooter she made with her quirk, Ada in his element, Ochako and Mina running longer since they've been runs with Izuku, but none of them could really keep up with Izuku, who just ran circle passes them. Eventually, Aizawa called him to stop since it was clear to him that Izuku could go all day if he really went for it. End music. And with that, the quirk and psychical tests had come to an end. Everyone stood together with Aizawa standing in front of them, holding his phone out. Alright, time to give you your results. I've rated you from best to worst and took in some factors and then to have balanced the results out. You should probably have a good idea to where you're standing is already. I'll pull up the whole list since it'll be a waste to go through it one by one, Aizawa says as he uses his phone and makes a hologram screen that showed the students' ranking in the class. Everyone had their eyes glued to the screen, looking for their name and where they placed. Number 1, Izuku Midoriya. Number 2, Momoye Urazu. Number 3, Shoto Todoroki. Number 4, Katsuki Bakugou. Number 5, Tenya Ida. Number 6, Fumikage Takeyomi. Number 7, Mizo Shoji. Number 8, Mashiro Ajiro. Number 9, Ijiro Kirishima. Number 10, Mina Ishido. Number 11, Ochako Uraraka. Number 12, Koji Koda. Number 13, Rikido Sato. Number 14, Tsuyu Asui. Number 15, Yuga Aoyama. Number 16, Hantasiro. Number 17, Denki Kaminari. Number 18, Kyokajiru. Number 19, Toru Hagakure. Number 20, Minoru Maita. Izuku saw that he was in first place and he grins. Alright, now that's what I'm talking about. Izuku yells as he spins on his heels before lowering down to the ground and does a few windmill spins right before he holds his left shoe in the air with one hand while using his other hand in a b-boy dance pose before launching up in the air. And lands back on his feet, striking one last pose. Hi, top 10. Beat that Acha-chan. Mina yells as she holds a grin to Ochako, who just puffs her cheeks out from seeing her ranking. Dang it, I thought I had you beat this time, Mina-chan. Ochako yells, really annoyed that her best friend had beaten her again. While some of the students let out a sigh of relief at seeing that they were safe, one student wasn't relieved seeing his rank as he started to cry and panic. No, I can't leave yet. I haven't become a hero to get to my dream. The short G-haired kid shouts as he cries and runs around the field like a headless chicken. Aizawa clears his throat, gaining everyone's attention. Oh, that little thing I said I would expel the one in last place ... Yeah, I changed my mind. No one's going home, Aizawa says, shocking everyone there, including Rishorty, who stops upon hearing that. What? Divided by really? The teens yell. Yes, if it wasn't for a certain smartass, Aizawa says as he slowly glances towards Izuku, who saw him looking at him and looks away while whistling. I would have kicked you out, but I see that you have potential to become a great hero, but your drive. I feel like you're here for something that's not related to saving people from evil. I would let that go and pick your slack up if you don't want to stay in the chopping block. Got it? Aizawa asks as the shorty salutes. Why yes sensei. The shorty yells. Aizawa just looks at him a bit more before turning to the invisible girl. And Hagakure. Aizawa calls to the girl as she flinches and turns to him from how her body was shifting to his position. Why yes sensei. The girl, Hagakure, says. Just because you're not in last place, but in second to last doesn't mean you're safe. You need to pick up your pace and I want to see you impressive over time. You don't want to be a burden in the field if you're tired from rescuing and fighting. Aizawa says. Why yes sir. Hagakure says as she nods. I expect you two to pull your weight in more from now on since I won't be so merciful the next time around. And Midoriya, Aizawa says as he turns to Izuku, who looks at him. Yes sir, Izuku says. Do that again and your ass is fried. Got it, Aizawa says as his irises glowed eerily red with his hair floating up, giving him a scary look which frightened Izuku and Sonic. Why yes sir, Izuku yells as he stiffens up. Aizawa stops his glare and quirk and nods while giving Izuku a note. Good, now go to the old lady to get your finger fixed up. The rest of you, go get changed and meet back in the classroom. We still have one more thing to do, Aizawa says as he starts to leave the field by the side of the main building, ready to talk to who was spying on the class. Man. That guy really gives me the creeps. Just make sure you don't piss him off again or you'll be in hell, dude. Sonic says as Izuku nods to his words. Yeah. Izuku agreed, now feeling that he needed to watch himself on how he talks to his homeroom teacher. His thoughts were cut short when he felt someone pat his back. He turns and sees it was Ida who was the one patting him in the back. Nice work, Midoriya. First place again. Truly you have the great potential to become a top-tier pro. Ida says, congratulating Izuku on the ranking as the green. Blue-hair boy just rubs the back of his head. Aw, thanks man. But don't count yourself short, Ida. 5th place in the overall ranking is impressive on its own. Izuku says, patting Ida on his back. He's right, that proves you do have what it takes to be a great hero. The two turn and see Momo was walking to them. Ah, you're in 2nd place. Momo Yaoyorozu, right? Ida asks as Momo nods. Yes, and you're Tenya Ida, correct? Momo asks, with Ida nodding. That's right. It is nice to meet you. Ida says as he holds his hand out to her. Momo takes it and the two shake hands. Nice to meet you too. Momo says, stopping the handshake. Deku-kun, divided by Zuku-kun. The three turn and sees the pink duo run toward them. Hey girls, nice work on the ranks. Izuku says as he gives his best friends a thumbs up. Thanks, I thought I'd get lower but I'm happy with 10th. But a certain someone isn't happy with hers. Mina says, grinning while Achako puffs her cheeks out again and glares at Mina. Oh, will you quit rubbing it in my face already, Mina? I'll beat you next time, just you wait. Achako yells as Mina and Izuku laugh. Not too far away from them, Bakugou was staring at them with anger in his eyes, mainly to Izuku. Not at how they were behaving but where he was ranked, 4th place. 4th freaking place. He could understand Izuku since the bastard was too opus for him to beat him in this sitting, but the other three above him, that really rubbed him in the wrong way. Deku ... you bastard ... just you want. I'll prove to you and everyone else who's really number one. Me. Bakugou thought, swearing to himself that he won't be behind Izuku anymore. Unaware to him or the others, one more person was staring at Izuku with a firm yet intrigued look on his face. Izuku Midoriya. He's an interesting one. Maybe I should observe him, see what makes him tick and see his connections and see just who he really is. The teen thought, making plans in his mind for observation. Soon after, we find ourselves back in class 1, a homeroom with the students back wearing their uniforms while their teacher, Aizawa, was back laying on the floor in his yellow sleeping bag. The students just watch Aizawa, who was just lying on the floor, sipping his juice pouch. Sensei. Ada speaks out, gaining the lazy teacher who looks at him. Yes, Aizawa says. What are we meant to be doing here? Ada asks with Aizawa sighing while placing his juice pouch into his sleeping bag. Sigh since we missed the opening ceremony. Aizawa says as everyone just looks at him with a deadpan expression. Geez, I wonder whose fault is that? Most of the class thought, considering that their teacher was the one who made them miss the orientation. You never got to introduce yourselves to each other. So, for now, introduce yourself to the people you'll be seeing for the next 3 years ... or until I decide to kick you out. Aizawa says, causing some of the class to sweat drop at his threat at the end, not knowing if he's joking or not. So ... what should we say? The blonde kid with the black streak asks. Just say your name, hobbies, quirk, and anything else you want to include. The choice is yours. Just make it quick. Aizawa says as he turns around, most likely to sleep, and the sweat drops the students had previously grown bigger at the sight of their teacher. I don't know if I should be happy that you got a lazy guy as a teacher or afraid of you since you got a lazy guy as your teacher. Sonic says as he watches Aizawa sleep and just sweat drops. Both, I guess. Izuku could only think about his opinion of his teacher. He shakes his thoughts on Aizawa as he looks around the class and saw that no one was going to speak. So ... who's going to start this off? Izuku asks, making everyone turn to him before turning to each other, trying to see just how should they do this. I suggest that we go by seating order. That way we can go quick in an orderly fashion. Ida suggests as everyone else thought it was a good idea while some couldn't be bothered. After settling with the idea, the first student, a teen with long blonde hair that looked a bit feminine, stood up. After almost all the class had done their introduction, Izuku was the only one left. He stands up from his seat and faces everyone. Sup, Izuku Midori is the name and speed is my game. Izuku greets as he gives everyone a toothy grin. I'll say, you were hella fast back there. Is it part of your quirk? The red hair, known as Kirishima, asks. Sort of, see my quirk is really just Sonic speed. I can run pretty damn fast, like at the speed of sound fast. Izuku explains, but one student found his explanation a bit far-fetched. The speed of speed. Should that be like, physically impossible to do since going at that speed is like, really dangerous to your body? The blonde with the black streak, Kaminari, asks. Okay, then please explain how I managed to make a tornado just by running around in a circle. Plus, quirks have been around for so long that someone was bound to have a super speed quirk that isn't a mutant type. Izuku says as Kaminari was about to open but stops as he starts to think about what Izuku said. As this was happening, the others took the opportunity to ask Izuku questions. What's the furthest place you've ran? Ada asks with Izuku thinking on it. I think it'd be Mount Fuji and back home when I was 8 years old, but I ran Miyako in the Iwate prefecture for an errand I had. Izuku says. Which was? Hagakure asks. I ran there to go and get my mom a square watermelon there for the summer since I heard that they have the best there. I ran there at my top speed back then, but I crashed into the cold dark water of the Pacific Ocean since I was going too fast and couldn't slow down in time when I got there. I got dry quick and got the watermelon and ran back home, but let me tell you, salt water stings when you crash into it at high speeds, Izuku says as he shivers at the memory of him crashing into the ocean. If it wasn't of the lifeguard there, he wouldn't be here right now. Okay, what's your top speed? The kid with large elbows, Zero, asks Izuku, who just shrugs his shoulders. I don't know, never really clocked it, but since I'm in UA now, I could do it when we have the time. Izuku says. So, everyone, does that mean you're fast F? Kamari asks as everyone just facepalm at his question. Oh my god, you're so slow. The earphone girl, Jiru, says as she drags her hand across her face. It was the next day and we once again find ourselves in class 1 as they were having an English lesson with Present Mike. While UA was a mainly school to produce the next generation of heroes or those who are going to work in something that's related to the hero business, there were still main core classes like English, maths, home eco and other subjects from any normal high school. They still had to be taught, even if you were in the hero course. Now, which of these 4 sentences contains an error? Present Mike, the English teacher, asks as most of the class was focusing on the lesson, while some didn't. This is so boring. Those who weren't interested in the lesson thought in unison. What a waste of time. Bakugou thought, not really like the lesson. A pair were having a much different conversation. So, tell me, why do you have to do this again? Sonic asks. He was out and sitting on Izuku's head with the human speedster, who was busy looking over at his notes, looks up to him, finding this strong to believe from the ghostly hedgehog. Dude, did you not go to school when you were still around? Izuku thought, looking up to the ghostly hedgehog as he floats over his head and flew around in the air with his arms behind his head. I think I did, but that's all I remember. But I don't think that I stayed long. I mean, why would I if I can run at the same speed as you can? Sonic asks as Izuku ponders on it a bit and found some truth in his words. Point made, but I have to do this if I want to be successful in life and become a hero. Those are the rules we live by. Izuku thought, with Sonic just snorting as he looks at him before turning back to him and giving the human boy a serious expression. Insert Ost, No Sacrifice, No Victory by Steve Jablonsky from Transformers. Please, I feel that a hero shouldn't have to go to a school to learn to be one. A hero is a type of person that saves people, regardless of fame, fortune, and recognition. Heroes are the type of people who go out of their way to save people who are in danger, people whom they've never met or known, people whose lives are at risk and know that there is a chance that they could die but still go and do whatever in their power to save the endangered, risking it all for the greater good. That's what a hero does, Sonic says. Izuku was in awe of Sonic's words. He felt that he was talking from experience. He couldn't help but smile at him. Wow, didn't think you had such thoughts about heroes, Izuku thought as Sonic looks at him, crossing his legs. Ah, what can I say? Heroes have interested me since I met you. I feel like that ... they're the ones you have to look towards when the world is kicking your ass. I mean, everyone should have a bright light in their life, someone to look up to, their own hero. You know what I mean? Sonic asks, Izuku knowing what he meant as he too had people he looks up to. All Might and his father. Yeah, I do, Izuku thought. Midoriya. And Ost. Izuku snaps out of his conversation with Sonic and him looking to the front of the class to see Present Mike was looking at him with a raised eyebrow. And he wasn't the only one, as everyone else was looking at him as well. Since I'm seeing you smile like that, I take it you're paying attention to the lesson, correct? Present Mike asks. Izuku sweats a bit. Why yeah, I am, Izuku says. Then can you kindly find the grammar error in these 4 sentences? Present Mike asks. Izuku turns to the board and sees the 4 sentences. He looks at them carefully and instantly spots the wrong one. Sir, you gave us a trick question. There are actually 2 sentences wrong. 3 and 4. Those are the ones that are wrong. There's a wrong noun in sentence 3 and the pronoun in the last one is wrong too, Izuku says as everyone looked at the 2 sentences and saw that he was correct. Both of them had grammar errors in them. Oh, at least someone catches that. Nice one, kid. Present Mike yells, giving the green-blue highlight-haired boy a thumbs up as he nods and smiles. No problem, Izuku says, going back to his notes. That was a close one. Sonic sighs, landing back onto Izuku's head as the boy lets out a mental sigh of his own. Tell me about it, Izuku thought with class resuming. A few hours later, it was lunchtime and the students of UA filled the large cafeteria to have their fill of tasty and affordable meals made by the cook Hira. Lunch rush, and the best part of this is that the students can choose what they want to eat, and many took advantage of that, especially Izuku. Currently, the teen was sitting by a table with Ochako and Mina, with the inclusion of Ida and Asui as they ate ... Well, they were trying to, as Ida and Asui were looking at Izuku wholeheartedly devour a pile of chili dogs in a fast pace, while Mina and Ochako were unfazed by this state and ate their meals. How is he doing this? Ida asks, seeing Izuku fit 3 chili glizzes into his mouth in one go and ate them. I think the question is, where does he put them? Sue asks, questioning how Izuku is still fit as he is while doing this. Ada turns to the two other occupants and saw them calmly eating. Does this disturb you two at all? Ada asks. Mina looks up to him. Truest Ada, we grew up with Midori and we've seen him do something small like this in the past. Once he hears the words chili and dog together, nothing will stop him from getting one and eating one. Mina says, turning back to her natto with okra and taking a bite from it. Yup, we've seen worse than this. I think you guys are lucky for not seeing Deku at his worst. Achako says, before taking a bite from a mochai. He's done something worse than this. What could top this? The two thought, shivering at the thought of seeing Izuku eating more chili dogs than what he was currently consuming. The two unknowing vowing that they should never take Izuku out to the mall or to a restaurant that makes chili dogs, in the event that he could bankrupt them by eating too much chili dogs. Time skip, a few more hours later. Afternoon. After the lunch incident, Class 1 were back in their classroom, ready for their next lesson as the next one was the one most of them were excited for. Why? Well, it's because Hero Basic Training. I am here. A loud and very recognizable voice spoke just outside the door, one that everyone in the class peeked and got excited, especially Izuku, who smiles. The door bursts open. The person who opened it was entering the classroom like a cool hero. All Might, who yells, revealing himself to the class in all of his glory. Whoa, it's really All Might. Kaminari utters, awestruck at the sight of the number one hero. Here, at UA. In their classroom. So, the rumor really is true. He is a teacher here. Man, this year's going to be awesome. Kirishima says, grinning while pumping his fist in the air at how exciting this year was going to be. Asui looks at All Might as he took dramatic steps toward the front podium and noticed the outfit he was wearing. Say, isn't he wearing his Silver Age costume? Asui asks, making those who heard her saw that All Might was wearing his. Wow, that's so retro. I'm getting goosebumps just from seeing him. Ajiro says, man, still can't get over how this is his hero form when we both know how he is the rest of the time. Sonic says, he had popped out of Izuku's head to see what was going on and saw All Might arrive. Yeah, but you've got to admit he is larger than life, right? Izuku thought as Sonic nods, not ever going to lie about it. Yeah, I can say that for sure. Sonic says as he decides to stick around and see what'll happen next. All Might turns to the front of the class and smiles brightly at them. Welcome students to the most important class UA High has to offer, Heroics 101. Here, you will learn the basics of what it is to be a licensed pro hero and what is right to fight for the name of all goodness and justice. All Might says as the students nod, in understanding what he was talking about. Now, let's get on with the lesson as we will begin the year with. All Might says as he flexes a pose for a little bit until he pulls out a flashcard that had battle on it, written in bright, bold colors. Combat battle training. Combat. Bakugou says as he starts to viciously smirk. Now they were talking in his language. Battle training. Izuku says, unintentionally finishing Bakugou's sentence as he flashes a smirk too. Not like Balagou's as he felt excited about what the training could hold. But what are one of the keys to being a hero is? Looking good. All Might yells, pulling out a small remote and presses on a button, and the wall in front of the row where Izuku sat opened out to reveal 20 briefcases in them, each with the number 1 through 20 on them. These were designed based on your quirk registration forms and the requests you submitted upon your acceptation into UA. All Might says, awesome. Izuku utters, getting revved up from this. Now, get yourselves suited up and meet me in training ground beta. All Might says, yes, sir. 15 minutes later, Fo City B. All Might stood in the middle of a street where a tunnel was in front of him, patiently waiting for the students to come. He then starts hearing footsteps echo out of the tunnel and approaching, causing him to smirk and open his eyes as he starts seeing several silhouettes heading towards the exit of the tunnel. Insert Ost, hero from Boku no Hero Academia. What makes a hero? Is it the way they dress? The way they save someone? No, it's the way they fight for what's right. The way they battle against the unfairness and corruption in the world. The way they go into the fight, the danger without a care for their own well-being just to save what really matters. Take this to heart, young students. You're no longer children. You're no longer just ordinary civilians. You're now heroes in training. All Might says as the members of Class 1 step out of the tunnel, wearing their new hero costumes and all looking proud to be in them. Now, let's get to work, you rookies. All Might says, smirking at them as the students look at each other in their outfits. And Ost. He then notices one was missing. Where is young Midoriya? All Might asks with everyone looks among themselves for the green-haired boy. Not too long though, footsteps were heard from the tunnel. Here I am. Sorry, I'm late. It took me a while to figure out how to fasten my sneakers. Izuku's voice yells from the tunnel as he runs down to the exit. They turn back to the tunnel to see what Izuku was wearing as he exits the tunnel. Insert Ost, Sonic appears from Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 soundtrack. He wore a white t-shirt with a blue short shelf blue and green open hoodie that had a yellow star and a red circle on the back of it with a red and white handkerchief tied around his neck and a pair of goggles with green lenses on the frame. A pair of black and blue shorts, as well as a red utility belt, worn under the shorts, were a pair of black compression shorts. He had on his hands a pair of white gloves with black palms, and for footwear, he had on white socks and red sneakers with white straps, white soles, and yellow tags. Endorsed, Deku, Midori. Izuku turns and spots Mina and Ochako running toward him, in their hero outfits. Sup gals, Izuku says. Mina looks at his outfit and whistles, impressed by how well it was put together in its design. Wow, nice costume. Not too flashy but look loose and comfy, Mina says with Ochako nodding. Izuku looks at himself. Yeah, I designed it so I could run at top speed while being loose and move freely. I'm not a fan of spandex, Izuku says, shivering at how uncomfortable and how it should feel to wear spandex to him. He then looks more closely at the girls and their outfits and couldn't lie to himself. They looked great in them. Man, you girls sure look great in them, Izuku says as the girl smiles. Thanks, Midori. I love how they brought out the kamo pattern, especially since I suck at drawing. Mina says. She twirls around to show Izuku all of herself in the costume. He got a good look at her butt, which made him blush a bit, but he pushed it back. He turns to Ochako and noticed something off with it. But Ocha-chan, I didn't think you'd go for skin-tight outfit. I thought you said you were making it like how 13's suit looks like, Izuku says as Uraraka just sheepishly smiles and rubs the back of her head. Why yeah, but I think they messed up on the bodysuit. It wasn't supposed to be skin-tight. Guess I really should have been more specific in my design, Ochako says. Izuku looks at her and just blushes before looking away from her, in an attempt to hide his blush away from the two. Why yeah, but you do look cute in it. You look good in pink. You've always had, Izuku says, scratching his cheek. Ochako hears his words and couldn't help but have her ever-permeant blush deepens in color from them. Thanks to Kun. Ochako stammer. Mina hears that and sees the two's expression and couldn't help but pout, jealous of not getting a reaction from the green blur. She looks down and sees his sneakers and couldn't help but notice something with them. Say Midori, why do your sneakers look different from the ones Eri got for you? Mina asks. Izuku looked down at his sneakers and lifts one of his feet up to his face. He knew what she meant. They did look different from the ones they got for him. Oh well, I sent them here of the support course to add a few modifications to them so they could last longer than most of my other shoes, since we all know what happens when I go too fast and wear them for too long, Izuku says, patting the sneaker to get a feel from them. They wear out fast and you burn a hole into them. Ochako says. She and Mina remember all the shoes Izuku had to go through while they grew up and knew that the shoes wouldn't last more than 3 months. The only other pair of sneakers that have survived long was his usual red high tops. It still confused them to this day as to how they've lasted this long compared to the others, as nothing was added to them. They were store-bought as a present to him. Yeah, so I asked if they could do a few upgrades to them so they could last, Izuku says, rubbing his hand onto the sneaker before he let the foot go back to the ground. He then taps his feet on the ground as he feels something from the sneakers and frown. But they do feel heavy and tight. I have to fix that before we start with the training, Izuku thought. He looks to his left and notices that Minta was busying staring at Mina and Ochako, drooling at seeing their figures on display. I love this school, Mina says, giving a thumbs up to no one in particular. Izuku narrows his eyes at the Prev, seeing him at his friends, and also find a way to drop Minta in the Arctic Circle. I mean, no one's gonna notice that he's missing, right? Izuku thought. Sonic was next to him and saw the expression Minta had and he couldn't hold back his frown. Maybe they won't. But I think they'll notice that he's gone, and just maybe there'll be a report on TV of a guy getting discovered, frozen in the Arctic Circle, and they could trace it back. I think you should threaten him of that if he continues to be this way, Sonic says with Izuku nodding at the suggestion. Good idea. I'll take him to a corner somewhere to have a friendly chat. All Might was looking at the students and saw how well most of them looked in their outfits. He then spots Izuku. At least you have your own identity, young Midoriya. Good. For a second there, I was worried you try and mimic my style, but I guess I was worried for nothing, All Might thought as he clears his throat, gaining the students' attention. All right everyone, now that you're ready, it's time for combat training, All Might says. One of the students raises their hand up. Sir, this is one of the faux cities we were in during the entrance exams. Does that mean we'll be conducting urban combat exercises? Ada's voice was heard through the helmet, showing that it was him in the suit. Oh, that's Ada in there. His suit looks awesome, Izuku thought, liking the suit's design. I'll say, it looks like one of those old knights in the Mid-Villa era, Sonic says. Yeah, but his suit is familiar. Where have I seen something like it before? Izuku thought, pondering about where he had seen something like Ada's suit. Something along the lines there, young Ada. Today, you'll be going 2 steps ahead. In most of the villain battles you all must have seen on TV or online, the majority of the battle take place outdoors. However, statically speaking, run-ins with the most dangerous and dastardly villains take place indoors. Hideouts, backrooms, underground lairs, and tunnels. The truly evil villains hide within the shadows, All Might says with the students there, understanding what he said and taking in his words. Now, for this exercise, you'll be split into teams of heroes and villains, battling in a 2-on-2 style bout. But, isn't this a little advanced for us? I mean, this is our first lesson, Sue says, poking her chin with her finger. The best training is what you can get from the battlefield. Remember, you can't always battle against robots. In the field, you'll be dealing with actual villains. Humans. All Might says, Sir, will you be deciding one who wins? Momo asks, slightly raising her hand up. How much can we hurt the other team? Bakugou grumbles out, looking annoyed about something. Are the losing team gonna get expelled like how Mr. Aizawa threatened us yesterday? Uraraka asks, nervous about that possibility. Will you be forming the teams based on chance or on quirk and individual compatibility? Ida asks, raising his hand up. Does my cape looks fabulous? Aoyama asks, flashing his sparkly cape out. All Might. Will we be rated on our performance and skills? Todoroki asks, will the teams be co-ed? Mina asks, eyes shaking as they were filled with. The girls slightly shivered as they all felt a chill go down their spines. Izuku saw that his mentor was struggling to keep up with the questions. Not that he could blame him, as his classmates were all asking him at once, really not giving him a chance to even answer one. He decides that enough was enough. Hey, Izuku shouts, causing everyone to stop their questions and turn their attention toward him. He sees that he had everyone's attention and, you knock me off of my feet now, baby. Ho, Izuku sings while tapping his heel onto the floor before kicking his right leg up and spinning around. Take 2. Hey, Izuku shouts, causing everyone to stop their questions and turn their attention toward him. Calm down, everyone. All Might doesn't have super hearing, so give him a chance and ask one at a time. He says with everyone saw that he was right and was embarrassed by their behavior. All Might smiles and nods at Izuku as he lets out a sigh of relief. Thank you, young Midoriya. You really saved me there. All Might though, he then clears his throat and everyone turns to him. Young Midoriya is right. For I have more to say, so listen up. All Might shouted. He goes to his utility belt and pulls out notes he had made earlier. Is that a script? Sonic thought as he and Izuku saw the pieces of paper. Yes, it is. Izuku thought. The situation is this. The villains have hidden a nuclear missile somewhere in their hideout. The heroes must try and foul their plans. To do that, the good guys must either capture the bad guys or recover the weapon. Likewise, the bad guys can succeed by protecting their payload or capturing the heroes. All Might finished reading the script as Mina looks at him and thought, sounds like old of the old movies Dad watches. Mina thought, your time is limited and we'll choose teams by drawing lots. All Might said, isn't there a better way? Ada asked as Izuku turns to him. Think about it, dude. Heroes often team up with other heroes from other agencies on the spot in battle. So that's the reason we're seeing that here. Izuku said with Ida nodding. Yes, I see. Life is a random series of events. Excuse my rudeness. Ida said while bowing down. No sweat. Now, let's draw teams. All Might said as the students took out the S to see who were they teaming up. Team A, Midoriya and Jiro. Team B, Shoji and Ida. Team C, Uraraka and Yaoyorozu. Team D, Todoroki and Bakugou. Team E, Ishido and Aoyama. Team F, Sato and Koda. Team G, Kaminari and Maita. Team H, Fumikage and Asui. Team I, Ajiro and Hagakure. Team J, Siro and Kirishima. And with that, your teams have been made. All Might says as everyone started to go to their teammate. Some were fine with who they were paired up with, and others were neutral, considering they haven't known each other that long yet. While a few were not happy. Oh come on. I wanted to be either with Midori or Acha-chan. Mina whines, flaring her arms around. She was upset that she wasn't with either of her friends and was stuck with a teammate who was currently busy looking at himself in the mirror. Achako was in a similar mood to her fellow pink warrior. Man, I didn't get to Kun, but I guess it's okay I got Yaoyorozu. Achako thought, slightly happy that she wasn't paired up with Minda as she and the girls could see that he wasn't the one to be with. Speaking of which, what the hell? I'm stuck with a dude. I wanted to be with the chicks, not partner up with a DCK. Minta rages in his mind. Izuku heads over to his partner and sees her twirl one of her earphones jacks around with her fingers. She sees him coming and turns to him. So, looks like I got you as a partner, Speedy. Jiro says. Yep. Izuku says, he then realizes what she called him. Wait, Speedy. Yeah, I mean you were hell of a fast. So, I called you Speedy. Why you don't like it? Jiro asks with one of her eyebrows raised. Izuku just chuckles and scratches the back of his head. Nah, I'm just surprised. Most people call me Green Blur or in some cases the Green Devil. Izuku says. Green Devil. Jiro asks. Yeah, long story short, during summer vacations into the countryside to visit my grandparents, I'd go and mess with this one old guy who was there and he'd set these traps to get me. He almost never got me, but I was just too fast for him. He doesn't know that it was me doing this and thought I was a devil sent to the town to terrorize everything, but people assumed that he was crazy, especially since no one saw me run. Izuku says. Jiro looks at him a bit as her mouth was twitching a little before she broke out in laughter. Wow, that's so funny. Jiro laughs, finding that too funny. Eventually, she calms down and wipes a tear from her eye. Been loads of fun. Izuku remembers all the fun he had with this man and smiles. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do that. But hey, that was then and this is now. So, let's kill this, strong core style. Izuku says. He then holds his fist out to her. She sees this and knew what he wanted. She holds her fist out and the two bump fists. Rad. Jiro says. Alright, now that you all have been paired up, we'll now begin the exercise, but before that, is there anything you'd like to ask? All Might asks, but no one immediately speaks out, up until Izuku did by raising his hand. Sir, can I request you a favor? Izuku says. Yes, what favor would that be, young Midoriya? All Might asks, can I go for a run? Izuku asks, causing most of the others, All Might included, to look at him. Why? All Might asks. Izuku just points to his sneakers. I need to break in these new shoes. They feel too tight and heavy. I need to break them and so they can loosen up. Izuku says. All Might thought about this and felt that this was unnecessary. Alright, you can go for a run, but you must stay in the city. All Might says, making Izuku grin. Thank you so much. I'll be back in a flash. BRB. Izuku yells as he bolts away from the group and starts running around the entire Flax City, indicated by a green and blue blur jetting around the area, as he went around streets and scaled up and down various buildings. Before he started to run in a circle around the city's border, he then starts scaling the buildings again before bouncing off them like a possessed bouncy. He then turns back to the group before sliding across the road, coming to a complete stop. Izuku stand up and checked on the sneakers to see if they were damaged in any way, but to his surprise, they were completely fine. Even better. They felt loose and lighter than before. Okay. They're not smoking or on fire and they're starting to feel loose and good. Man, Mom and Itomo sure know how to pick the right sneakers. Izuku says as he bounces on his feet before walking back to the group. Thanks, All Might, I really needed that. Izuku says with the pro nodding to him. No problem. Now then, if there aren't any more questions, let's start the exercise by throwing. All Might says as he had his hands in the two pools again, this time, to let fate decide which teams will kick things off. Soon though, All Might grab two pools and pulls them out. These guys into the ring. He yells, flashing out the A and the D to the students. Team A and D were surprised that they'd be up first. Team A will be the heroes while Team D will be the villains. Everyone else can head to the monitoring room to watch the training. All Might says, yes, sir. The class says they start to move over to the monitor room, leaving the two teams behind with All Might. This early, huh? I didn't think I'd have to face him this early. I thought we'd see each other at the sports festival that's coming up later in the semester. Izuku thought he really wasn't expecting this too soon into the school year. Sonic appears next to him and places his hand on his chin. Well, looks like fate had other plans for you both. And I can say that he's happy about this. I mean, just look at him. Sonic says, pointing to Bakugou. Izuku turns his eyes to the explosive boy and saw he had an expression of glee and anticipation. Yeah, I think that he'll take this as a chance to finally beat me in a fair fight. The only problem there, Izuku thought before he smirks, that I know everything about his moveset, and how he fights, this'll be a piece of cake. Izuku thought. All Might led the teams to a building. Alright bad guys, you can go on in and prep. In 5 minutes the good guy will be let loose and the battle will start. Understand? All Might asks, with the teens nodding. Yes, sir. The Force, Todoroki and Bakugou were heading into the building. And remember young Todoroki and Bakugou. The key to being successful in this challenge is to embody villainy. Think from the perspective of an evildoer. That's how you'll be at your best in the... Yes, sir. Todoroki says as he enters the building. Bakugou stays behind and stares at Izuku with a stern glance before entering the building and following Todoroki up to the top floor. Inside the building, Todoroki and Bakugou were in a room with a large missile in it. Todoroki approaches a large bomb that was in the center of the room. So this is the weapon we must protect, Todoroki said as he knocks on the weapon. Fake ... of course. Hey, Todoroki turns to see Bakugou, back facing him as the blonde was staring at the door. Do you think that Deku's powerful? Bakugou asked out of nowhere. Well, of course, I'd think he's powerful. The way he utilizes his speed and bails it to other aspects is impressive. I mean, you saw how he threw that yesterday. He thought out of the box, which I never did think about. Why do you ask? Todoroki asks. I'm just asking. Bakugou yells. Well, there's your answer. But speed isn't going to help him here. Since my ice is stronger here, I suggest that you don't get in my way. Otherwise I'll have to put you down as well. Todoroki says. Bakugou started to shake in place as the threat. And that Todoroki said he'd beat Deku before him. That didn't sit well with him as he turns and glared at the dual-colored haired boy. Oh, you can forget that. If anyone's gonna beat that nerd up, it's going to be me. Just guard the FC King bomb while I take care of Deku and ears. Bakugou yells. He starts to storm out of the room. Hey, where are you going? Todoroki asks, but Bakugou ignores him and continues to walk into the halls of the building, thinking about Izuku. After all these years of him beating me and everything. Bakugou thought, going back to all the times that Izuku had faced him in anything school-related and other stuff and how he lost to him, every single time. Now, he'd finally got a chance to settle the score between them. In the old-fashioned way. I can finally roast that damn nerd today in a fight. Bakugou thought, gaining a crazed battle expression on his face. Outside the building, Izuku and Jiru were looking at the building's floor plan to see where the bomb would most likely be in. So, what do you think of the other team, Speedy? Jiru asks, turning to Izuku who? Can't really say much. I know Bakugou and I know him well. He'll come after us first as soon as the battle starts. But Todoroki, Izuku says. What about him? Jiru asks, raising her brow. That's the problem, we don't know much about him. All I know of him is that he's one of the recommended students that got enrolled into UA and that his dad is the number 2 hero, Endeavor. Izuku says, Endeavor. But, we've seen him only use ice in the quirk assessment. His dad has a fire quirk. Jiru says, I know, what I think is that he must have a dual quirk. 2 abilities in one since his hair is 2 different colors and his costume looks to indicate something in link with it. Like opposites. Izuku says, Jioru thought on it a bit before she understood what he was talking about. Opposite, ice and ... fire, Jiru says. Izuku nods. Yeah, Izuku says. But yeah, didn't he use it yesterday? And why didn't Mr. Ezawa call him out? He said that he'd expelled anyone who wasn't going full out and he called you out. Jiru asks with Izuku shrugging his shoulders. I know now. But for now, it ain't my problem. Or do I care? If he wants to hold back, it's his problem. Not mine. Makes our jobs easier. Right. Izuku asks as Jiru thought a bit before nodding. Yeah, Jiru says. Not long after that, a siren went off with All Might's voice speaking through a sound system. All right, the time limit is up. Heroes, you can enter the building. All Might yells the battle had begun. Looks like that's our cue. Izuku says, he stretches his legs. After doing his warm-up, he turns to Jiru. Let's go. Izuku says as the two head toward the building's side. Monitor room. The students and All Might were in a room with a big screen with several monitors on it with different angles. Pay attention, kids. Think about what you would do if you were in this situation. All Might says, yes sir. The students yell as they watch the monitor. Young Midoriya ... I in this class, you're just another one of my students and not my successor. I wish you luck. All Might thought as he grabs his mic and talked into it in an earpiece. In the building, by one of the windows. A window slide opens and Izuku peeks through it, looking for any sign of life but saw none. Seeing that the close was clear, he jumps through rolling it on the ground, and rolls down the hall until he unfolds himself and hides behind a corner. He whistles and Jioru climbs through the window and sneaks to Izuku. And we're in. Jiru says, be careful. I can see that there are loads of blind spots in these halls that one of them could be hiding in. Izuku says with Jiru nodding. The two starts to snakingly traverse through one of the halls in search of the stairs. Man, it's too common here. Where could they be? Jiru asks. No clue, but let's find out. Think you can plug in one of your earphones into the wall and listen into either of them and see where they could be? Izuku asks. Yeah, good idea. Jiru says she heads over to the wall next to them and plugs one of her earphones into it and starts listening. Got anything? Izuku asks. Yeah, I hear someone breathing on the top floor and it sounds like they walking around the room. And we've got someone rushing over to the bottom ... to us. Jiru says and Izuku instantly knew who it was. Then the one who's heading to us is Bakugou, meaning that Tadaki is left alone at the bomb. Izuku says. Jiru continues to listen to the wall's vibrations until she hears something happening to the building. Wait, something's happening. Jiru says. Izuku turns back to her. What is it? Izuku asks. I'm hearing something spreading throughout the building from where Todoroki might be. Jiru says. Spreading throughout the building. Could he be using his fire? No, that'd be dangerous, considering the bomb would be burned and explode so. Izuku pondered on this until he realizes what was happening. Todoroki was freezing the entire building with his quirk. Jiru, unplug from the wall. Todoroki's freezing the whole building with his ice. Izuku shouts, and Jiru's eyes widen upon hearing that. She unplugs her jack from the wall but they hear ice forming near them. They turn and see the ice forming into the hall closing in on them at great speed. Izuku cursed as he knew that if either of them were to touch the ice now, they get frozen. He quickly grabs Jiru and picks her up, bridal style, much to her surprise and embarrassment before stops and he starts running forward to the ice. Wait, what are you doing? We'll get us frozen if you run into it. Jiru says. I'm not going to run into it. Instead, I'll. Izuku shouts. Once they got just by the ice, Izuku suddenly jumps over it, rolling in with Jiru as they leap in the air until Izuku unfolds them and slides on the ice until stopped by a wall. Just jump over it. Izuku says. He looks down at Jiru and saw her having a frustrated expression. You okay? Jiru could only nod before speaking. Why yeah, I'm good. Jiru says. She then remembers her current position and her blush deepens in color. Could you let go of me? Izuku sees that he was still holding her in his arms and blushes. He lets her down on her feet again as he turns away. Sorry. Izuku says, scratching his cheek. It's okay. Jiru says. Before Izuku could say something else, he notices something jump from the corner and see Bakugou with his palm open and glowing red. He knew that it was an explosion and he had it aimed at them. Izuku tackled Jiru to the ground, dodging Bakugou's attack as it hit the wall next to them. Watch out. Izuku reacts quickly and tackled Jiru to the ground, barely dodging Bakugou's attack as it hit the wall next to them, filling the hallway with smoke. Izuku and Jiru were slightly back from where Bakugou had landed. Jiru, you okay? Izuku asks. Jiru coughs before responding. Yeah, I am thanks. Jiru asks. She looks at her teammate and notices that Izuku had a burn mark on his cheek while his handkerchief scarf had a burn on it. But are you okay? I'm fine. It's just my cheek and scarf. This is nothing really. Don't worry. Izuku sat, not looking at them as a cracking noise was made. They turned and saw Bakugou emerge from a wall and was to his feet as he clears the smoke away with his arm while glaring at Izuku. What's the matter, Deku? Too afraid to stand up and fight me? Bakugou asks while adding venom to his nickname of Izuku. Izuku snorts as he stands back up and glances at Bakugou with a firm expression. Actually, I knew you'd come for me first. Considering that's how you operate, and I figured that you pull a surprise attack. Izuku says. He wipes the black scorch mark from his cheek and looked at the wall Bakugou blew a small hole into. What's the matter, Bakugou? Your explosions are usually stronger than the one you fired at us. This one is smaller and weaker. Got performance issues. Not that I can really blame you, since it ain't uncommon with guys. 1 out of 5 have issues performing. If you get what I mean. Izuku smirks. Jiru was struggling and holding back her laughter while Bakugou was getting irate. My rip of a candy cane of a teammate froze the damn building and dropped the temperature, making it strong for me to sweat properly and blow shit up. Bakugou says. Izuku nods. So, performance issues. Got ya. Izuku says, grinning as Bakugou was twitching in rage before he gains a deranged smirk. I'm so going to enjoy killing you, Deku. Bakugou says. Izuku snorts as he pulls the cuff of his right glove down. You can try, cause I'm not going to let you win this fight. Izuku says, getting into his fighting stance. The two stare at one another before they charge at one another with Izuku rolling into his form. Energy coursing off him as it was starting to form spikes around him while Bakugou had his right hand out, palm open as it was glowing red while steam was forming from it. The battle has begun. Die nerd. Bakugou roars as he shoots an explosion at Izuku who was in the air, in his form with the energy spikes forming around him. The explosion connected and filled the hallway with smoke and smog. Bakugou smirks as he thought his attack had landed on Izuku and turns to the smoke, waiting for it to dissipate and reveal his fallen foe. Hi, how do you like that, Nijih? Bakugou was saying but gets interrupted when something collides into his midrange at high speeds. He felt something was picking at him as he gets sent back flying down the hallway and hitting the wall behind him with the ice on it scattering upon impact. Bakugou slides off the wall and lands on the ground as his head was spinning. What's the matter, Bakugou? Did you have something to say? A voice asks. Bakugou shakes the stars from his head and sees Izuku, standing in front of him where he was previously standing. The green-blue highlighted haired teen was there, having his arms crossed and looked fine apart from his cheek and handkerchief as they were burned by Bakugou's attack previously. Deku. Bakugou sneers. He slowly started to get back to his feet. Izuku turns around to his teammate. Jiru, now would be a good time to go and look for Todoroki and that bomb. Izuku says. Are you sure? Didn't you need help? Jiru asks. Izuku turns back to Bakugou who got back on his feet and saw he was glaring at the two with his irises glowing with rage. Izuku turns back to her and smirks as he pulls down the cuffs of his gloves. Oh, I think I got this covered. Just go and look for him and the bomb and stay hidden. I'll catch up. Now go, Izuku says. Hearing the confidence in his voice, Jiru nods and scurries off in the other direction, in search of Todoroki. What's wrong, Deku? Scared I'll hurt you in front of your little partner? Bakugou says as Izuku just laughs and shakes his head at him. Nah, I just don't want her to be around when I drag your face across the ground. Izuku says, making Bakugou slightly more anger. I'd like to see you try that. Bakugou says as Izuku just gives him a cheery grin as he processes taking off his hoodie. Oh, you'll see it. Izuku says, as he starts waving his hoodie at Bakugou as if it were a cape. Toro, he says with a Spanish accent. Bakugou saw red and explodes, figuratively and literally. Damn, you. Bakugou yells as he rushes toward Izuku with his quirk as he prepares for a right hook. Izuku didn't do anything but patiently wait for Bakugou to get to him. Once he was close, Izuku couldn't help but smirk. Too easy. Izuku thought. Bakugou as the greenlet effortlessly dodges his attack and lets him fly past, lifting his hoodie into the air. OLA. Izuku chants. Seeing Izuku had dodged his attack, Bakugou quickly redirects his hands to be in front of him and fires an explosion which shoots him backward, and spins mid-air while pointing out his right hand toward Izuku, intending to blow him up, but Izuku saw this coming a mile away and ducks under the attack as Bakugou fires with it missing of course and grabs hold onto the blonde's right arm. Shifting his feet as he steps away, Izuku pulls on Bakugou's arm which throws his balance off. He then places his bottom into Bakugou's hips and bend over, squats, and lifts Bakugou off of the ground, while pulling his arm forward and flips him over his back in the air behind, slamming him into the strong ice-covered concert back first, but Izuku wasn't finished with him just yet, still holding onto Bakugou's arm. He lifts him off the ground and slams him into the wall beside them and then to the other wall and repeats this actions at high speed until spinning around and lets Bakugou go, sending him flying down the hall and crashes into the wall. Bakugou lets out a pain grunt while spitting a small amount of blood flew out of his mouth when he hits the wall and slides down from it. He wasn't expecting that to happen. He didn't expect Izuku to not be able to only read his moves but counters and retaliate. As he starts pulling himself off the ground while dazed, Izuku spoke. You're too predictable, even for a guy you've tried to fight over the last 10 years, especially to a speed demon like me. I can read you like an open book, dude. Word of advice, change up your fight style. Otherwise, you'll just lose every time. Izuku says. Bakugou looks at Izuku with an irate expression while the grinlet simply crosses his arms. So, are you gonna sit there, twiddle your fingers, or are we gonna fight some more? Izuku asks, smirking at him and crossing his arms across his chest. Bakugou gets onto his knees and spits out some blood that was in his mouth. He then glares at Izuku. You bastard. Think you're really tough, huh? Bakugou hisses. Nope, I'm just built different. Izuku says, before giving Bakugou a two-finger salute and grins. See, yeah. He yells as he jets away from the blonde. Bakugou saw Deku had run away, angering him as he wanted to fight him to show that he was still the best between them. He gets up from the floor and his hands began to light up from the sparks igniting from it. Deku, Dekufcker. Bakugou roars. He starts to rush down the hallway, using his quirk to propel himself. Don't you dare run from me. Come back here and fight me like a man, you coward. He shouts, searching for the green blur. On an upper level, Izuku was sitting on a flight of stairs as he listened in on Bakugou's rant, while shaking his head. Okay, that'll keep him busy for a while. Now to check up on my partner. Izuku thought. He goes to his ear and presses on the comm. Hey Jiru, you there? Izuku asks through the comm as it turns on the other line. Midoriya. Yeah, I'm here. How are things going on your side? Jiru asks, on her side. Good, I lost Bakugou and I'm chilling by some stairs on the 3rd floor. Did you find Todoroki? Izuku asks, leaning down onto the stairs. Yeah but Izuku hears Jiru hesitant. But what? What's wrong? Izuku asks. He froze the door to the room he was in solid. I can't open it or break it down without altering him. Really? Izuku asks. Yeah and it sounds like Todoroki was just talking to Bakugou before something happened since he's trying to call him again, Jiru says. Guess Bakugou hung up on him while looking for me. Izuku thought. Okay, just let me think a bit. Izuku says as he turns off the comm and thinks. He turns to the wall beside him and sees the ice on it. He taps the ice and sees some of it break off from the wall and onto the bottom of the stairs. Okay, the ice Todoroki made when covering the whole building isn't thick and more solid than I thought it'd be, which could mean that he only made the ice thick and solid in the room where the bomb is the same as the rest of the building, or it's the more density, meaning it'd take some form of force just to go through it. But what? Izuku thought as he thought up ways in breaking the ice, smashing it with enough force to break through the ice and take down the door in one go. But what could do that in a single shot? That was when he realized something. He goes back to the comm and calls Jiru. Okay Jiru, I've got an idea. Think you can follow it? He asks. Sure, what have you got in mind? Jiru asks. What sound can you plug through your speakers? Izuku asks. Just my heartbeat. I can plug my earphone jacks into my speakers and amplify my heartbeat through them. Jiru explains. Can you turn it up to a higher volume? Izuku asks, smirking. In the comm center with All Might in Class 1A. HHA, who's Midoriya and Jiru TTT talking to? Kirishima says, noticing Izuku and Jiru were talking on screen but couldn't hear what they were talking about. I'm not hearing anything. Is the SS sound broken or SS something? He asks, chattering his teeth as he holds himself while shivering. Everyone else in the comm center was also holding themselves, All Might as well. The reason why was this happening was due to the sudden drop in room temperature thanks to Todoroki's strategy of freezing the entire building, and as a result, nearly freezing the. I gave each of them a radio so they can talk to their partners along with a map of the building. At least a roll of capture tape. All Might says while holding out a roll of white tape in his large fingers. Warping this around your opponent means that they're captured and are out of the rest of the game. All Might says, confusing the students. Wait, so, there's a 15-minute time limit and the heroes don't even know where the explosive even is? Hagakure asks, holding onto Asui who was also holding onto her but looked sleepy for some reason. All Might nods. That's right. All Might says. So that means that the heroes are at a huge disadvantage here. Hagakure says, and All Might lets out a loud laugh. Real heroes have to outwit villains in our day-to-day lives. That's the life of a hero, even when the odds are against us. We fight. All Might say as the students felt inspired by the speech. Now, all together. All Might yells with the students following him. Plus ultra. Mostly everyone yells the school's motto while the ones who didn't either raise their hands along to the cheer, or were still holding on to one another for warmth. Aoyama notices something on the screen. Sir, Midoriya is on the move. Aoyama says as everyone turned back to the screen. Back with Izuku. You got that? Izuku asks. He had finished explaining the plan he had in mind. Yeah, got it. Jiru says. Okay, just wait for the signal, which should be really soon. Izuku says. Gotcha. Good luck. You too. Izuku say and the comms drop. He stands up from the stairs and stretches his arms and legs. Okay, that's enough time for him to look at me. Now it's my turn. He yells before taking up his running stance and blasts off, breaking the ice in his wake. He zooms through the hallways, taking the sharp corners where he ran on the walls to turn those as he zooms up to the 4th level. Just as he runs down a hall, he spots Bakugou coming out of a room, probably looking for him there as he speeds up toward him and slid under his legs but grabs his ankles and sends Bakugou falling face first into the ice-covered floor while Izuku continued to slide until he got back to his feet and was crouching. He looks at Bakugou and saw he was getting up and notices something he was doing that made him smirk. Sup? Izuku yells. Bakugou turns and sees him. Insert Ost, his world from Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. Deku. Bakugou roars while turning to face Izuku. Got scared and came out to face me, nerd. He yells. Izuku shakes his head and stands up, and crosses his arms. Nah, I was just looking for ya, since I know I can't wait for you forever. After all, I know you're slow and all. Izuku says with a grin. This causes Bakugou to be infuriated as his palms let off sparks. Oh, I'm so gonna enjoy blowing you into next week. Bakugou snarls with Izuku looks at him with a raised eyebrow. First of all, pause. Izuku yells before looking at Bakugou with a serious look as he pulls down the cuff of his gloves. Second, I'd like to see you try, he says, shifting into his fighting stance. Bakugou snarls more before placing his hands behind him. Die. Bakugou yells as he blasts himself toward Izuku and prepares a right hook backed with an explosion. Izuku smirks and starts spinning in place while Bakugou soars toward him. Nope. Izuku yells, and as Bakugou was near him and about to punch Izuku with his attack, Izuku stopped spinning around and hoofed him with a heavy kick into his abdomen, making Bakugou gasp out for air while saliva flew out of his mouth as he sent back flying down the hall. Bakugou rolls a bit on the floor before correcting himself and uses his hands to come to a halt. He was about to get up when he sees a green rushing toward him and slamming into his gut once more as he is again sent back into a wall with the grinding into his stomach. Izuku unfolds himself from his form and places his hands on the ground and starts performing a barrage of high-speed kicks at Bakugou. Izuku then flips on his hands and sticks out his foot. Spin kick. Izuku yells as he strikes Bakugou on the chin, lifting him off the ground as Izuku uses his speed to get back onto his feet and swing a right hook that had green and blue lighting surging off and around it. Detroit smash. The right connects and Bakugou is forced through the wall behind him and into a room where he rolls across the floor before crashing into the wall in it and stopping there. He groans from the attacks while trying to get back up as he looks to see Izuku coming at him in his form. Getting desperate to stop the pain he was experiencing from all the attacks he sustained and to stop Izuku from attacking him further, Bakugou sends a blast at Izuku, who takes it and flips back down the hall before flipping onto his feet and looking at the sandy ash blonde who was trying to recover his breath. He looks at Izuku, who looked fine apart from some soot that was on some parts of his outfit. WW what? Bakugou stutters in shock. How aren't you down? I put my most into that blast, he yells, and Izuku looks at him with confusion. Dude, if you hadn't noticed or forgotten, you're in a building that's frozen and you've been putting your hands onto the ice-covered floor, making your gloves and hands colder than they were before and thus making your explosions weaker than their usual. You're at a disadvantage in this fight, dude. Just give up, Izuku says. Bakugou grits his teeth thinking that Izuku was looking down on him. Bastard. Bakugou roars before he blasts himself toward Izuku once more to blast him with an explosion. Izuku smirks again as he waits for Bakugou to be close enough, and once he was. Izuku leaps over him and looks at him in the air before he lands behind him, and Bakugou slightly gets hit by an invisible barrage of force for a bit before he is sent flying to the side of the room and crashes into the wall. In the comm center with All Might in Class 1A. Whoa, what happened? Sato yells. He and the others were shocked and confused upon seeing Bakugou being sent flying by an unknown force. I don't know. One minute I see Bakugou flying toward Midoriya, the next I see Izuku standing and Bakugou is on the floor by a wall. Minda yells. Mina and Ochako, on the other hand, weren't as shocked as they had a feeling that Izuku did something. Izu did something to Bakugou, Mina says, and everyone else turns to her. Huh, Zero utters. What do you mean he did something? He asks. What she means is he leaped over Bakugou and lands on the other side, and the next thing, Bakugou is sent flying into a wall. Deku did something to make that happen. Ochako says, looking at the screen before turning to All Might. All Might, could you rewind to the point where Deku was in the air above Bakugou? She asks as All Might blinks. Why yes, let me rewind the footage and see what happened. All Might says. He goes to the control and rewound the footage to the point where Izuku was in the air. Ah, here is it. He plays the playback and saw nothing that showed any sign that Izuku did something except leap over Bakugou. I still don't see anything that showed he did something, Ajiro says. Momo narrows her eyes at the footage as she spots something with Izuku. Wait, All Might, could you slow down the footage to that point? Momo says, and the pro hero turns to her. Why, young Yaoyorozu? All Might asks. That's a glitch that happens with Izuku, Momo says while pointing to the screen. See, when he's just in the middle of the air and above Bakugou, that's a glitch that happens for a moment. She says. Most of the class looks at her for a bit before turning back to the footage and looking at Izuku. Just as he was in the middle, they see that Izuku glitches a bit. Hey, there is a glitch, Kaminari says. Yeah, but it looks like the camera barely picked it up. Minda says. Wonder why the glitch happened. He says. Perhaps if I reduce the playback speed, maybe we can see what young Midoriya did. All Might say. He goes to the control panel and reduces the playback speed to 0.5x, but it wasn't enough as there was nothing to show why the glitch happened. He lowers the speed to 0.10x, but still nothing. He lowers it further down to 0.50x, but again, nothing. So, he resorted to lowering the speed all the way to 0.1 100x, the maximum that the footage could go. Ah, this is the highest we can go. Now, let's see what actually happened, he says as he presses the play button. The footage showed Izuku and Bakugou in the air. The green light with blue highlight was moving normally while Bakugou was frozen in the air. Suddenly Izuku on screen smirks as blue lighting surges from his body and starts sending down a barrage of punches onto Bakugou's frozen body, leaving after images with each punch connecting. He then spins around and kicks Bakugou's side before spinning back into position and lets out a burst of speed which makes him move forward and land on his feet. The footage returns to normal speed as Bakugou is braided by the barrage of punches and is sent flying into the wall by the kick. Everyone was shocked at seeing what had really happened to Bakugou. No way ... did he seriously move so fast that the camera could barely pick it up? Kirishima asks, mouth open in shock. Why yeah, Zero stutters. How ... how fast do you think he had to go to do that? Sato asks, hell of a fast. Sato says, dude. Kaminari utters in awe. Did you know that Izu could go that fast? Mina whispers to Ochako, they were surprised at seeing their friend's speed. Yeah, they knew he was fast but they didn't know he could go that fast. No, I didn't. Did you? Ochako whispers back and Mina just shakes her head. No, Mina whispers, nearly yelling that, as they were thinking back to their youth of Izuku and his speed. I'm surprised that the camera picked that up. Young Midoriya, just how fast are you? All Might thought, staring at the footage in shock, but he quickly gets over it and returns back to the live feed and sees Izuku walking toward Bakugou. Back with the 2 moments ago. Izuku turns around and sees Bakugou lying on the floor, trying and failing to get back up while coughing out loud. Come on Bakugou, haven't I beaten you enough already? Izuku asks, tapping his foot on the ground as he waits for Bakugou to respond to him, but the blonde didn't as he was now kneeling on the floor, as he tries to catch his breath. Seeing this as a call to surrender, Izuku shrugs his shoulders and pulls out the capture tape from his hoodie. Alright, stay still while I tie you up and end this so I can go and help my partner with your partner. Speaking of which, he says while walking toward Bakugou as he goes to his comm and calls Jiru. Hey Jiru, you start the prep for the plan. I'm almost done with Bakugou here. You'll get my signal to do it. He speaks, not noticing Bakugou was gradually getting back up. And listen Deku Bakugou was saying before he stops upon seeing one of his grenade gauntlets. About time. He yells, altering Izuku who turns to him. What are you talking about? Izuku asks with confusion as he sees Bakugou start to smirk while seeking back the lever of the gauntlet to let a pull pin spring out. Since you know about my quirks so much Deku, then you have to know that these grenade gauntlets aren't just for show. They've been storing up all my sweat from my hand during this fight and now, it's all loaded up. You've seen what my explosions are like from my hands, now see what one monster will look like. Bakugou says. He had a deranged smirk as he reaches for the pull pin while aiming the gauntlet at Izuku who was blinking. Wait ... what? Izuku utters. In the comm center. No, he's going too far. All Might had thought, after hearing what Bakugou said, and if it was true, then that. Young Bakugou, don't release that attack. You'll kill him. All Might yells into the mic that was connected to the building's POS system. Not if he dodges. That was what he heard Bakugou say from his comm. What? Is he really going to do it? Shoji asks, eyes widening in shock, while he had ears on the ends of his. Do what? Ajiro asks, wondering why he and All Might were freaking out. He's going to fire a stored-up attack from those grenades of his to Midoriya to take him out. Shoji says, shocking the others upon hearing what he said. What? Mina and Ochako yell, eyes widening at hearing that as they turn to All Might. All Might, stop the fight. They yell and All Might was about to go out and stop Bakugou but it was too late. Back in the building, Izuku's eyes widen as he spots the barrel of the grenade begin to glow orange. His irises begin to turn blue and glow. Jirou. Now, Izuku yells. Die, you speedy nerd. Bakugou yells, fully pulling out the pin and releasing the attack at Izuku as it travels towards the teen at a high speed, destroying the ice on the floor and pillars. Insert music, fist bump from Sonic Forces. That was until the explosion suddenly slows down to a snail's pace as Izuku looks at Bakugou and shakes his head. Idiot. Izuku could only say before walking over to the frozen Bakugou who had his deranged smirk. Izuku only roll his eyes before he pulls out the capture tape and runs around Bakugou, quickly wrapping his entire body with it and rendering him immobile. Once he had finished with this, Izuku moves to Bakugou's front, looks at him and does a simple F to the forehead, which actually took Bakugou off from the ground and slowly moved to a wall. Seeing this task done, Izuku turns to the door and runs out, running up to the floor where Jiru was located. With Jiru, she had hooked her earphone jocks to her boots and had blasted out a loud burst of sound to the door as the ice on the door and wall shattered in slow-mo, and the door started to cave into itself with the sound. Izuku runs to the floor, with each of his steps shattering the ice on the ground and walls as he ran through the hallways and up the stairways, leaving his blue lighting in his wake. He reaches the floor and looks around for Jiru and spots her down a hall by the door, and he sees the door caving in from her attack. Smirking, he takes up a runner's stance and bolts down the hall before rolling himself into his form and speeds down the hall, shattering all the ice around him as he reaches the door and breaks through it, and soars through the room toward the still form of Todoroki as he slams into the teen, causing him to gasp out for air while time returns back to normal. Todoroki falls to the floor, robbed for his breath as he tries to process what happened, but he couldn't as a green was bouncing off him up and down, keeping him down. Jiru enters the room and sees what was happening to Todoroki. "Jiru, if you would." She hears Izuku speak in his form, continuing to pummel Todoroki down as she realizes that the bomb was wide open and runs toward it, but as she runs to the bomb, Todoroki drops his right hand down to the floor and uses his ice quirk in trying to freeze her legs, but she leaps over the ice and toward the bomb and touches it. Endost. In the comm center. "You did it." All Might whispers, seeing Jiru touch the bomb. "They won the trial. The hero team wins." He yells as the siren goes off, signaling the end of the trial with the timer having 4:32 to spare. The students in the monitoring room were stunned at what just transpired until one broke the silence. "Wow that was a WESOME. Kaminari yells, stars in his eyes. "I know, right? I didn't think Midoriya would appear in the room where Todoroki was at one moment. How'd he get there that fast?" Zero yells. "How does the old saying go? The strongest lasts the longest," Takoyami says, crossing his arms. The rest of the class was gawking out at the speed Izuku displayed while two let out held breaths in relief. "This class is intense," Asui says before they felt a huge wind gush blow and they saw All Might not in the room anymore. In the building, Bakugou was on the ground, lying next to a wall that had a big crack in it, in the room where Izuku had tied him in the capture tape as he was processing what had happened and what he just heard. "I lost he thought, thinking about the fight he had with Izuku and how he lost. He thought about it and felt that Izuku was just playing with him. He couldn't land any blows to him except for the ambush, but Izuku countered and landed his own attacks on him, all while playing with him, and felt that he was holding back. Then that means if Deku wanted to if he wasn't holding back while fighting me he'd Bakugou thought, not liking this feeling he was experiencing again. And just as his vision was starting to shake, he feels someone cutting the tape off him and is set up straight. "Young Bakugou, are you alright?" He hears All Might speaks as he looks up and sees the pro hero kneeling down in front of him, looking at him with worry. "Why yeah." Bakugou stutters after a while and All Might lets out a sigh of relief. "That's fortune. I was beginning to worry since you weren't answering me originally," All Might says. Bakugou doesn't speak, as he was still out of it. "I'll be back to take you to Recovery Girl to get you treated for that head wound. I just need to go and see how the other students are," All Might says before bolting out of the room. Bakugou was confused about what he meant by a head wound. He places his hand on his head before lowering it down to see there was blood on his glove. Back on the floor where the trio was, upon hearing that they won, Izuku stops jumping on Todoroki and lands on the floor where he unfolds himself out of his form and stands and looks at his teammate, and sees her on the floor, still touching the bomb. "Hey, Jiru, you good?" Izuku asks. Jiru just stands up and holds herself as she turns to him. "Why yeah, fine. Just chill is all," Jiru says, shivering after feeling the cold room finally as Izuku just chuckles. "Haha, I can see that," Izuku says. He then looks down at Todoroki, who was still on the floor, trying to regain his breath. He sticks his hand out to the heterochromia teen. "Hey, good match man, you nearly had us there," he says with a smile. Todoroki looks at him for a bit before scowling and smacks Izuku's hand away from him. "Whatever," Todoroki says as he gets up and processes and leaving the room, leaving Izuku standing there in confusion. "Geez, what's his deal?" Izuku thought, scratching his head while thinking this. Just then, All Might appears in the room. "Ah, young Midoriya, young Jiru. Are you two alright?" All Might asks. "Yeah, we're fine, All Might. Just cold is all," Izuku says, with Jiru quickly nodding. "Ah good," All Might says as he looks at them. "I ran into young Todoroki and asked if he was fine, with him saying that he is alright. I just wanted to make sure. Come on, let us get out of here," he says. The two didn't need to be asked twice as they leave the frozen building and walk the monitoring room and were bombarded with questions from the rest of the class as soon as they enter the room. "Midoriya, that was awesome. Midoriya, Jiru, you guys killed it. You beat the hell out of Bakugou. Todoroki, you nearly made me go into hibernation." The class bombed them with praises and glares at Todoroki for his stunt, not that he paid any attention to them. Dekuri, Izu, Achako and Mina run toward Izuku, looking worried. "Are you okay?" they ask, as Izuku sees their worry and just chuckles. "Yeah, I'm fine girls. Just peaky. Just got a scratch, is all," Izuku says. All Might moves toward the large screen and stands in front of it as he looks at the class continue their chat until he clears his throat, causing them to stop talking and turn their attention to him to begin to discuss the breakdown of the trial. Well, with the results and what we just witnessed, I clear the MVP of this trial as young Jiru. All Might yells. The class looked surprised about Jiru being called the MVP, including said girl as some were. And no offense to Jioru, but how'd she get MVP instead of Midoriya Kiro? Asui asks the pro. Valid question. Why did I choose those two instead of one? Who has a guess? All Might asks. Sir, I can tell you why. Momo raises her hand at the request. Go right ahead, young Yaoyorozu. All Might yells. Let's talk about the villains first. When Bakugou left Todoroki to guard the bomb, a mistake when the trial is clearly for us to work together to guard it against the heroes. Bakugou also let a personal grudge he has against Midoriya cloud his judgment, and that allowed Midoriya, in turn, to predict that Bakugou would come after him first, and only in this test. That allowed Midoriya to make a plan to counter him. He also made the mistake of releasing a large-scale attack like he did in a building covered in ice. If it was more powerful, the whole building could have collapsed in itself. Todoroki also made a critical mistake when he attempted to freeze his opponent when he froze the building. He also encased the bomb in ice, a mistake that could have killed not only himself but everyone else in the blast radius, as the bomb's integrity would fail due to the decrease in temperature. He also crippled his teammate's quirk when he encased the building with his ice, as Bakugou's explosion doesn't seem as powerful as it was during yesterday's quirk test. Now to the hero team, Midoriya made his mistake in letting his fight with Bakugou as long as it was, when he could have simply defeated him and assisted Jiru with Todoroki much early into the fight. Jiru was the only one who remained focused on her task of locating the bomb's location, spotting Todoroki, relaying that information to her teammate, and using an opening to distract Todoroki to let Midoriya come and stop him and allow her to capture the device. Momo stops her speech, looking pleased with herself as the others looked at her in shock at how detailed her explanation was. Izuku thought back and found what she said to be true. She is right, I did let the fight draw out too long. Izuku thought. Yeah, but where's the fun in that? Beating your opponent in record time. That gets boring fast. He hears Sonic's voice speak in his mind, thinking that he must be watching from inside as he agrees with what he said. True. This girl really does have a good eye. All Might thought while in a similar state of stunned shock. Yes. Well, you overlooked a few things. Young Jiru did do what she was recommended in doing in this trial, and while the others did make mistakes, it's still their first time doing this, so there's still time to learn down the line. But, other than that, you nailed it. All Might yells, giving praise to Momo after coughing to cover up the high-pitched tone of his voice before speaking. While everyone was trying to process what she said. One should always start with basics to develop depth of learning and devote themselves wholeheartedly. That's the only way that you can become a top hero, Momo says while her hands were on her hips. Now, let's move on, shall we? All Might says, as the computer was loading in the next match. Alright, it's Team B versus Team I now. Teams go and get ready. He yells as the two teams prepare for their match. Yes sir. The four students say, leaving for a new building to use for their test. 3 hours later. It was the end of the day and the sun was setting. Students were leaving campus and heading home or into the city to do something else. And among those leaving UA was Bakugou, who looked completely dazed and out of it. He had a roll of bandage wrapped around his forehead and some parts of his head. He was mindlessly walking toward the gate as a gush of wind blows by, making him close his eyes to shield them from dust that was kicked up from the wind. Where do you think you're going? He hears someone speak as he looks around for who was talking but saw no one near him. Up here, idiot. He hears the voice speak again, only it sounded like the person talking was in front of him. He turns to the front and saw no one then, until he looks up and sees Izuku sitting on the gate, looking down at him with a bored look on his face. I'll ask you again, in case you didn't hear me the first time. Where do you think you're going? Izuku asks. Bakugou doesn't say a thing as he just resumes walking toward the gate. That was until Izuku jumped off from where he was sitting and lands in front of him, blocking Bakugou's path. What? Got nothing to say. Izuku asks. What do you want? Bakugou finally speaks. I want to know where you're going. Izuku asks. Home. Bakugou says, and Izuku surprisingly scoffs. Oh really? It looks to me like you're running away. Izuku says, crossing his arms as Bakugou looks at him with focus. What? Bakugou says. Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. You're running away. Izuku says. You've tried to fight against me for 10 years and the majority of that time, you've lost. But that doesn't stop you from coming back and trying to beat me again. So, I want to know. What makes this loss different? He asks. He looks at Bakugou, who remains silent for a bit, and Izuku was getting rather impatient as he starts tapping his foot on the floor. Well, he asks again, and finally, after some more time passes, Bakugou speaks. Insert Ost, self-analysis from Boku no Hero Academia Ost Vol. 2. I lost. Bakugou utters and Izuku just rolls his eyes. Yeah, that's pretty obvious here, dude. Izuku says. I lost to you ... to you when you were playing around. Bakugou says louder as Izuku looks confused. Izuku says, raising an eyebrow, wondering what he was on about. I tried to give it my all, but I was screwed over by my idiot of a teammate. I tried to beat you with everything I had, but it wasn't enough. You beat me ... and you were pulling your hits, playing me like the fool during our fight. Bakugou mutters before gritting his teeth. He could tell that. Guess he's more observant than I pegged him for, Izuku thought, surprised that Bakugou noticed. He sees Bakugou tightly clenching his fists to the point where his knuckles were turning white. My all wasn't enough to beat you, even when you were holding back. You were someone I beat when we were younger, but your quirk came in and you became someone I couldn't beat. Everything I tried to do to beat you, you were better. Then, you came first in the exam and in the quirk test yesterday. But, I saw that most of the extras in our class were actually good. I realized that I couldn't beat some in a head-to-head fight, like that icy idiot. Bakugou screams before grabbing onto his hair and pulling it off. Damn it, damn it, damn it. He yells, lifting his head up to the sky. Izuku frowns in concern. Sure, he doesn't hate the guy or liked him either, but he saw that Bakugou was in a bind on this, and knew it was his fault. Look, Bakugou, Izuku was saying, but Bakugou cuts him off. But, you better listen here, Deku. You better enjoy that victory for yours, cause it's going to be the last one between us. I'm gonna get stronger and beat you the next time we fight one another. I'll beat you even if you're holding back or going all out. That, I can promise you. Bakugou says, with a newfound look of determination on his face as he stares at Izuku. Izuku looks at him for a bit before he finds himself smirking. Alright, you're on. Let's go on a clean slate then. All the previous losses, wins from the past are out the window. Just you and me. Deal? Izuku asks, sticking out his fist toward Bakugou, who looks at the fist for a bit before he smirks and processes bumping his fist onto Izuku's. Deal, but you better be ready to cry when you lose against me next time, Deku. Bakugou says, and Izuku just laughs. Funny, I was going to say that to you when I beat you. Izuku says. The two's fists separate as the wind started to blow by, both staring each one down with determination and confidence. This would be the beginning of many rivalries in their lives. There you are. And the moment was ruined by the loud yell of All Might, who was rushing from the main campus as he rushed toward Bakugou, passing Izuku at speeds that almost knocked him over. All Might approached Bakugou and places his hands onto his shoulders. Young Bakugou, you must not let this defeat get to you. Pride is something great to have as a pro, but you still have much to learn still. All Might was saying his inspirational speech. Hey, All Might. All Might turns to Izuku. All is good with him. I sorted him out. He says, causing the pro hero to be confused. All Might says, let me go, All Might. I already got my resolve. I now know that Deku's my rival, one I have to beat first before going after you. Just you wait, I'll beat Deku and then I'll surpass you and be more famous than you are. Bakugou says as he removes All Might's hands from his shoulders and starts walking away from the two, leaving All Might utterly confused. That was something, All Might says, scratching his head in confusion, wondering what happened between the two. He turns to Izuku. Did you really help him, young Midoriya? He asks. Yep, I had a feeling that he needed to vent and gain something from it, so I tracked him and spoke with him. Surprisingly calm too, I was expecting he'd try to blow me up. Izuku says. Really? All Might says and Izuku nods. Man, what are teenagers these days? They're solving their own issues that fast. He thought. Yep, now can I go back to class? I left my bag back there when I chased after him. Izuku says. Yes, you can. All Might says. Sweet. See you tomorrow. Izuku says before he bolts away, disappearing in a green blur, leaving All Might to sigh. Man, being a teacher is stronger than I thought. All Might says as he runs his hand through his hair and stands there at the gate, in thought. Date, unknown. Time, unknown. Location, unknown. In an unknown location. One guy was looking at the television as the reporter was reporting on how All Might was teaching the next generation of heroes at UA. He scoffs. Heroes, all they do is save people, and this society thinks that they're safe, especially with this symbol of peace protecting them. He scoffs as he brings out a picture of All Might. I'll show how fragile the sense of safety that society made when All Might has died. He said as the picture started to turn into dust while someone else was in front of him, cleaning a glass with a cloth. As a camera zooms in on this, static. Sir, we managed to track down that EMP blast that happened a few months ago. A man dressed in tactical gear walked up to an older man who was dressed in a black military officer outfit with a red band on his right arm. Excellent. The older man says, taking the tablet that the younger man had and looks over its contents. Did you locate where it happened? He asks. Yes, sir, it happened in Misutafu, a small city with Tokyo. The blast happened roughly around 1330. That was what the orbit satellites said before they went down due to the blast striking them. The younger man says as the older man frowns at the name of the city. Misutafu. Isn't that the city where UA is? The older man asks himself, thinking about it. Do you think they could be attempting a strike, sir? The younger man asks as the older man just shakes his head. Highly unlikely, cadet. It's a hero school, I doubt they plan something like this ... but ... just in case. The older man utters, thinking about what he was thinking about a bit more. Sir. The younger man calls to his boss, who looks at him. Call Agent Rouge and have her meet me in my office in 10 minutes. She has a mission to do. The older man says as he walks away while the younger man nods and salutes him before he too walked away. Agent Rouge, report to the commander's office in 10. Repeat, Agent Rouge, please report to the commander's office in 10 minutes. The announcement rang in a feminine voice size. And just as I was finally getting my tan start, The voice utters with anger in her tone. She sighs again, knowing that she couldn't dodge this time since the commander had requested her, and knew he didn't like to be waited upon. Guess another mission awaits, she says as she gets from her yard chair and starts putting on her clothes as the camera zooms out from her, and reveals a large battleship that was in the air, above the cloud. It was the next day and we find our heroes, Izuku, Ochako, and Mina at UA, ready to head into the school to start their day. Well, they would be if it wasn't for what was in front of them. The trio blink in confusion as they see a large crowd of reporters and news anchors surrounding the UA High entrance, nearly asking every student that was trying to walk into the campus, asking them various questions that were related to All Might as a teacher, and how was he doing. Well, this is something I wasn't expecting on a Wednesday morning, Izuku says, with a sweat drop as the two girls could only nod. The media can be scary just to get a scoop, Mina says, also with a sweat drop, and we have to go through them to get to class, Ochako says, with a sweat drop of her own. The other two then realize that Ochako was correct, about having to go through the crowd. Aw, man, Izuku says, not liking that, but they had to if they wanted to make it to class since this was the only way to get onto the campus. So, the three forced their way through the reporters while receiving a barrage of questions, with them having to answer some when they saw the reporter who was asking the question wouldn't let them go. They apologized and said that they had to get to class. Izuku then hears someone going into a long speech and turns to see Ada talking to a few reporters, making said speech instead for a simple answer since he could see the reporter interviewing him was looking disinterested in his speech. He chuckles and continues pushing through the crowd, where they eventually make it through the crowd of reporters. In the class 1 homeroom, the students were chatting amongst themselves on various topics as Mr. Aizawa entered the classroom, causing the students to quiet down as he walked toward the podium, with a few sheets of paper in hand and stops at the podium and looks at them. All right, now, let's get down to business. I viewed your combat training yesterday. Decent work, I must say, Aizawa says. I reviewed your results individually and I made some points and actions you all did that need to be discussed, he says before turning to Bakugou. Bakugou, you're talented and skilled, but you can't go solo in a team-based exercise. You need to have a commutation with your teammate. If not, it will ruin your chances to be victorious. That's why Todoroki froze the building and cut your quirk power in half. Don't go temperamentally, rush off and take on your opponents alone. That's how you get yourself killed. Remember that next time, he says as Bakugou just sees his tongue. Yeah, whatever, Bakugou mutters while turning away from Aizawa. Speaking of which, Todoroki, that was a risky move you pulled, freezing the entire building like that. Not only did you freeze the building solid and crippled your partner's quirk's power outcome, but you also severely damaged the building's infrastructure and foundations. Had the foundations snapped, the building would have collapsed on top of you all, severely injuring or even killing you. Think of that next time, Aizawa says. Todoroki frowns a bit before he nods. Aizawa then turns to Jiru. Jiru, nice work. You used your quirk accordingly and relayed information to your partner, giving the location of the bomb and assisting for the win. Good work, Aizawa says. Jiru smiles as she nods. The teacher then turns to Izuku. Midoriya, Aizawa says as Izuku looks at him with full attention. You're skilled and definitely resourceful with your quirk. That's good to have when you're a pro, but you can't be messing around with your opponents in a battle like you did with Bakugou in the training. In real-life battles with villains, you need to be serious and take out your opponents as quickly as you possibly can. Don't waste time as people die if you're a second late. I'm sure that's won't a problem for you, he says, and Izuku nods, with a serious expression. Yes sir, Izuku says. Aizawa nods as he goes on to the others to give them feedback on their mistakes. Sonic appears above Izuku and looks at him with a curious look. You are going to continue to mess around with people you fight, right? Sonic asks, as Izuku just looks at him with a smirk. Of course man, why would I stop doing that when it's fun to do? Izuku thought, and Sonic smirked as well. Aizawa continues giving the others his feedback on their performances in their combat training, with them nodding, understanding what to do next time and what to change. Eventually, he finishes his breakdown and decides to move forward with the agenda. Okay, with that, let's get to business, shall we? Aizawa says, catching the class's attention. Our first task will decide your future, he says, and the class tense up. Is it another quirk test? The majority of the class thought, wondering if they were going to do something that they needed to stay in class. You all need to pick a class representative, Aizawa says, with the class relaxing at that. Oh good, just normal school stuff. The class sighed in relief. Pick me, guys. I want to be class rep. Kirishima eagerly yells, with his hands up in the air. I'll take it. Kaminari yells with his hand raised. Nah yeah, you're gonna need me, Jiru says with her hand raised as well. Someone with style would be B. I'm totally the right pick. Mina yells, unknowingly cutting off Aoyama, who just looks at her with a strained smile. Hey, let me do it. I could lead these bunch of extras. Bakugou shouts, his eyes white in aggression as he shoots out of his seat. Pick me. I'll make a rule that the girls in class have to wear skirts that are 3 centimeters shorter. Mina shouts, his eyes wide with drool dripping from the corner of his mouth as the girls all turn and glare at him. Pervert. The girls yell before all punch him across the face, sending him flying to the front of the class where he faceplants onto the wall and slides down to the floor and lies there, knocked down while Aizawa ignores him. Looks like everyone wants to be class rep, Izuku thought, as he sees everyone raising their hands, wanting to be picked to be class rep. He even sees Mina and Ochako raising their hands. He chuckles and kicks back in his seat. Don't you want to be this class rep? Sonic asks and Izuku just shakes his head. Nah, I'm good. Besides, I'm not the leading type of guy, you know. I'm more for the goes with the wind. Izuku thought. Sonic thought for a bit before he nods at his words and kicks back in the air like he was lounging on a yard chair. I feel ya, Sonic says. The yelling and pleads for being the class representative continue for a bit as Ida stands up from his seat and looks at everyone making the noise. Silence everyone, please. Everyone stopped and turned to Ida. A class representative's duty is to lead others. That's not something that anyone can do. You must first have the trust of everyone in the classroom. Therefore, the most logical is to fill the position with democracy. We will hold an election to choose our leader, Ida says with his hand raised high in the air as his body shakes. The class realizes what he was trying to do. It's pretty obvious that you want us to vote for you. The class thought, is this really the best idea? Kaminari asks as Tsuyu nods. We've only known each other a few days. How do we know who can we trust? Tsuyu asks with a finger on her chin. Besides, everyone will vote for themselves, Kirishima says, pointing out the one big flaw in Ida's suggestion. Most people will, but whoever receives the most votes is the one who is most suited for the job. It's that best way, right sir? Ida asks while turning to Aizawa who had gotten in his sleeping bag during all the ruckus. Aizawa just turns to him with a flat look before shrugging his shoulders. Do what you want. Just decide before my nap's over, Aizawa tiredly says before falling onto the floor and falls fast asleep. Thank you for your trust, Ida says while the rest of the class just looks at Mr. Aizawa. Is this guy really a pro hero? They thought as sweat drops appear at the sides of their heads. Ida then pulls out some paper and handed the paper to everyone for them to write down the name of the person they want as their class representative, and after getting their paper, the class started thinking and writing down the name of the person they wanted. Izuku looks around and started thinking about who should he vote for. A person who fits being a leader. Izuku thought about who'd he vote for until he looks around one more time and sees someone and realizes who he wants to be the class rep. He smiled and writes down that person's name on his piece of paper and hands his vote into the OT. After everyone placed their vote on the OT, the votes were counted and the results were announced to the class on the board. The election results: Izuku Midoriya, 5. Momo Yaoyorozu, 3. Rest, 1 or 0. Disqualified, Minoru Maida. What the what? How'd I get 5 votes? Izuku yells. He was surprised that he had a vote but was shocked to see 5. Bakugou slams his hands onto his desk as he turns to the rest of the class. Okay, you dumbasses. Who voted for Deku? Bakugou asked, clearly mad about the loss. What? Did you honestly think that anyone was going to vote for you? Shiro asks with a grin. While Bakugou was yelling at the black-haired kid, Izuku scratches his head in confusion. How did he get 5 votes and who voted for him? Who the heck voted for me? Izuku thought, confused by how he won as Sonic looks around and spots something that makes him chuckle. I think I know who voted for you, bud. Sonic says, making Izuku stop scratching his head and look at him. Huh, Izuku says. Sonic just points to the other side for the class and Izuku looks at the side and sees Ochako and Mina casually whistling, trying to look innocent, but Izuku could see through their acts as he realizes they voted for him. Oh, you two little minxes. I'm going to get you two back for this, he thought as he grins a little. He was so going to remember this. Ida was sitting in his chair in a state of shock. He couldn't believe that he got 0 votes. 0 votes. I feared that this might happen. But I can't argue with the system that I suggested, Ida says to himself while the others were looking at him. So, you voted for someone else, huh? Momo asked. But you knew that it was best to vote for yourself, huh? Bummer. What were you trying to prove here, Ida? Sato asks as Ida just doesn't say a thing and accepts the loss. After the results were shown, Izuku and Momo were standing next to each other in front of the class. Alright, our class rep is Midoriya, with Yaoyorozu as our vice rep, Aizawa announces while still on the floor. The class claps their hands to the two as Momo looks at Izuku. I'm glad that I know that is stressful for you to be in a position, but I know you can do it. Momo whispers to Izuku, who turns to her and smiles. Thanks, didn't think we'd be here, considering I don't think that I'm the leader type. Izuku whispers, cracking a sheepish smile. Well, I do think you can be a leader, considering I voted for you. Momo whispers and Izuku looks at her with a surprised look. Really? You voted for me? Izuku asks and Momo nods. Yes, Momo says. Izuku looks at her for a bit before he cracks a smile at her. Cool. Thanks, Momo. Izuku whispers as the girl smiles and nods at him. No problem, Izuku. Momo says as Aizawa read them the conditions of being a class representative and vice rep. Time skip, a few hours later. Lunchtime. Some time passes and it was now lunchtime, where we see Izuku, Mina, and Ochako together in the cafeteria, eating their lunches. Joining them were also Momo and Ida at their table. Man, it's so crowded in here, Ochako says while munching on some rice from her bowl. You said it. I know we haven't been here long, but every time we're here, there's strongly any free tables for us to sit at. Mina says as she looks around the cafeteria and sees how packed it was while seeing students in line for their meals. Well, the reason behind that is because all three courses, support, management, and heroics, all share the same cafeteria. Momo explains to the two while she ate a slice from a Chicago-style large deep dish pizza. That's right. The school board does this to save time instead of doing each course having their own break and such. Ada says, taking a bite of his curry and rice. Achako nods, understanding the reason why the cafeteria now. Oh, okay. I guess that makes sense. Achako says as she takes a bit of her rice and eats it as she man. This rice is so yummy. She says, delighted by it. And the others could agree with her. Izuku was the only one who wasn't speaking or eating, even though he had a plate filled with chili dogs, as he was in deep thought over his new position as the class representative. I need to figure out a way to not be the class rep. I don't like the work it brings, Izuku thought, thinking of ways to deal with the position. Sonic was there with him, floating in the air. You could just quit, you know. Sonic suggests as Izuku just looks at him. Yeah, I could, but that just seems a bit crappy to do that when there are people who voted for me. Izuku thought. Sonic thinks about that and couldn't help but agree. Yeah. And speaking for people voting for you, there's still the two other votes you had and don't know who were they from. Sonic says, causing Izuku's intrigue to peak as he looks up at him. Yeah, you're right, Izuku thought as he thinks about his problem a bit longer. Izukun. Izuku's thoughts were cut off when he hears someone calling out to him. He blinks and sees the others looking at him. Huh, Izuku utters, confused by their stares. What? He asks, are you okay, Midori? We've been calling you for a while but you weren't responding to us. Mina says as Izuku blinks again and understood what was happening. Oh right, sorry about that. I was just thinking about the whole class rep thing. Izuku says. What makes you say that? Achako asks and Izuku just shrugs his shoulders. I don't think that I should be the one that leads the class. I'm not that type of guy, Izuku says while he takes one of the chili dogs from his plate and starts eating it. The others blink at him before realizing his issue. They felt like he was insecure about his new position. Oh, that. You'll do okay, Achako says as Mina agrees. Yeah, you will. Mina says. You'll be great at it. Ada says. Izuku looks at them with a raised eyebrow. Okay, I understand where the girls are coming from. But what makes you think that, Ada? Izuku asks, looking at the tall boy who turns to him. It's your quick thinking and the ability to handle things under pressure. I think those traits make you a worthy leader, and not to mention the strength and speed you possess. You are my better in speed, Ada says, and Izuku was surprised from hearing that from him. His surprise grows at what he said. Wait, you're one of the 5 who voted for me, Izuku asks as Ada nods. Yes, Ada admits as the others look surprised. Wow, that's a surprise, Mina says. Yeah, didn't you want to be the rep, Ada? I mean, you sure do look the part, with the glasses and the stiff attitude and all. Achako bluntly says as everyone else minus Ada turned to her with sweat drops. Acha-chan, you know that doesn't work like that, Momo says as Achako looks at her and blinks, before realizing what she said. Oh, really? Silly me, Achako says as she bonks herself on her head and sticks her tongue out to the side. Everyone looks at this and their previous sweat drop grew in size. Airhead much, the others thought. Wanting a job and performing well at it are two different things. I know that much from observing my family's hero agency most of my life, Ada says before he takes a sip of his oj as he realizes what he just spilled out to the others. The others look at him in confusion at the mention of a hero agency while Izuku's eyes widen from him finally connecting the dots regarding Ada. Wait, now I figured it out. You're an Ada. You're part of a legacy family. The Turbo Hero family, Izuku yells, making Ada's eyes widen as he turns to Izuku and stares at him in shock. How did you figure that I was part of a legacy family? Ada asks as Mina snorts. Midori here, been a hero geek since we were kids. Anything hero related, he knows it all. He's the one guy you go to on that, Mina says and Ochako nods. Yep, he's a big nerd to All Might. He has posters and other merch of him in his room at his house. Even sleeps in All Might PJs still, Ochako says as she and Mina giggle. The others snicker or giggle softly while Izuku's eyebrow twitches from the snicks and giggles coming from his friends and classmates, especially Mina and Ochako, since they said they'd never tell another living soul about that. He then suddenly smirks, 2 could play that game. Says the girls who not only have posters of Midnight and 13 on the walls for their bedrooms at home but also have their merch, and still sleep with plushies of Izuku was saying, but got cut off by Mina and Ochako, who had their hands over his mouth and looked pale and frightened by what he was about to say. You swore you'd never tell anyone about that. The 2 girls yell loudly, causing everyone in the cafeteria to turn to their table in confusion, wondering what that was about as they blush from embarrassment while Izuku just removes their hands from his mouth. You fired the first shots when you told them about my room, so I had to retaliate, Izuku says, smirking at the 2 who just shyly sit back down to their seats, knowing they've been had. Izuku then turns to Ada. So, Ada, about your family's hero agency, he asks as Ada blinks before realizing what he was saying. Ah yes, of course. As you've figured out, I am from the Ada family. My family's been heroes for generations, since the early days of the dawn of quirks. There has been at least one Ada in the past 3 generations. I'm sure you all know for the Turbo Hero, Ingenium. Ida asks and Izuku instantly nods, with his fanboy side coming out. Sure do. He's an extremely popular hero who's based in the western district of Tokyo. He has 65 sidekicks currently signed to his agency. Izuku says with a smile before he stops as his mind sees onto something while looking at Ida with a mildly shocked expression. Wait, don't tell he says as the girls look at him in confusion while Momo gasps, coming to the same conclusion that Izuku had as Ida grins. That's right. He is my older brother. Ida loudly and proudly proclaims as Mina and Ochako were shocked at this reveal. What? No way. Mina yells. Your family's super famous. Ochako yells, in shock as Ida pushes his glasses up. Ingenium is an unmatched commander who honors the hero code. Ida says, as he looks at the others and has a proud smile on his face as the second Ida son, I strive to be just like him. But, I feel like it's too soon for me to be in the leadership role. But you Midoriya, it fits you perfectly. You were about to figure out what the judges were looking for in the exam and proved in the combat training how resourceful you can be. He says while looking at Izuku as he said that before seeing everyone looking at him. What? Is there something wrong? He asks, thinking that there was something wrong as the four shake their heads. I think that's the first time you've ever smiled in front of us, dude. Izuku says as the others nod. Yeah, I think so too. Ochako says, it suits you. You should do it more, Ida. Mina says, smiling as well with Momo nodding along. Ida raises one of his brows at them. What are you all talking about? I smile all the time. Ida says, and this causes the girls to giggle at his confusion while Izuku just chuckles a little. Wow, Ida's got an amazing reason to be a hero. Kind of like mine really. Izuku thought as Sonic floats down next to him and nods, looking at Ida who is still confused by why were the others giggling. That's some goal to live to. I starting to like this guy more. Well when he's not a stick in the mud. Sonic says and Izuku couldn't help but agree with the ghostly hedgehog as he nods. True. Izuku thought. He sees that the others had stopped giggling and he decides to ask for help in his predicament. Hey guys, about this class rep thing. Ring. Izuku was cut off when a loud alarm ran throughout the school, causing them and everyone else to stop what they were doing and look at the alarm in confusion while the third years looked shocked and scared. What's that? Izuku asks. Warning, this is a level 3 security breach. Repeat, this is a level 3 security breach. All students must evacuate in an orderly fashion. What? No way. One of the third years that was sitting next to their table yells, in shock, causing the teens to turn at him. Excuse me, what is a level 3 security breach? Momo asks this third year who turns to them. That means someone somehow broke into the campus through the school's barrier. This hasn't happened before in my 3 years here. We should get going. The third year yells before getting up from his seat and booking it toward the nearest exit. Soon, everyone else in the cafeteria started rushing toward the nearest exits as the kids sees this and knew they had to, as well. Come on, we've got to get going too. Izuku yells and the others couldn't be asked twice as they book it toward the closest exit to them. But upon entering said exit, they and every student that was in the cafeteria were squished in the hall as they were trying to leave the building while some were getting trampled by some of them. Oh, Ochako cries out, as she was getting crushed in between two larger students than her. She pushes out of them to get some room to breathe. This is a total mob now, she yells. Everyone was quick to react to the altar, as I expected from UA. But this is getting out of hand. Ada yells. Why yeah, people do tend to panic when chaos springs up. Momo yells. What caused all this panic? Mina yells as she finds herself getting squished. The panic's got to be out. Who's closest to the window? Izuku asks. I am. Ida yells as he pushes his way to the window to have a look as to who was the cause of this. He looked and saw. It's the press that was outside. Ida yells, seeing the press who were at the gate in the morning trying to get into the building as Aizawa and Present Mike blocked them from entering into it. All we want is All Might. He's here somewhere. A female reporter yells to the pros. I said to stay off the school ground. Present Mike says, not having it today with the media. Just give us one comment and we'll leave. A cameraman says, I know how you people work. Give you an inch and you'll want a mile. Aizawa says, glaring at the news crews. Present Mike then went to his ear. They are trespassing, so that makes them villains. Why don't we just beat them up? Mike asks, really wanting to use his quirk on the press to get them out of the campus. Don't even think about it. Unless you want your name to be dragged through the mud. Let's wait for the cops. Aizawa whispers back to the DJ, understanding his friend's announcement of the press. Ada, what do you see? Izuku asks. It's just the media. They entered the school grounds somehow. Ada replies, causing the others to be shocked. What? So there aren't villains at all? Momo asks as Ada looks back to the window to see if there were any and he found none. No, I'm afraid not. Ada yells. Yeah, but the rest don't know. Ochako yells, seeing the rest of the students were still panicking and were none the wiser. How do we tell them that it's not? Mina asks. Sonic floats above the crowd and looks around the hall before spotting a pipe over the door. Yo, Izuku. Sonic yells, and Izuku looks up at him. Yeah, Izuku thought as Sonic points to the door. Look up at that door. Sonic yells, Izuku follows where his ghostly friend was pointing and sees the door. See that pipe above it? You thinking what I'm thinking, bud? He asks as Izuku thought about what he could be thinking, before getting an idea of it. Yeah, I see it and I got an idea, Izuku thought before turning his head toward the others. Guys, I have an idea, he yells, getting the attention of the rest as he looks at Ochako. I need you to take Ida and my gravity away and make us float when we get close to you, Izuku yells before he turns to Ida. Ida, you'll throw me to that door and I'll gain everyone's attention, he yells out. The two hear this and nod, with serious expressions. Oh okay, divided by right, the two yell back. Izuku and Ida start pushing their way through everyone, making toward Ochako as she stretched her hand out to them while trying to push closer to them. The two continue pushing through the mob, getting closer to her as they stick their hands to Ohako, as she was being pushed back. As she was sticking her hands out to them, but thanks to the people who were shoving into her, she was pushed back and misses. Ochako grits her teeth as she pushes through the crowd a little bit more and reaches close enough to smack the pair's stretched out hands and take away their gravity. Feeling light, the two jump in the air and float above the unaware mob as they barely turn toward the exit. Izuku curls up into his form. Ready? Izuku asks as Ida nods and grabs him. Yes, Ida says. The glasses-wearing teen looks at the door and toward the piping and takes aim, and just as he was about to throw Izuku. Wait. The two stop as they look down and see Momo looking up at them while holding something in her hands. Here, use this to draw everyone's attention, she yells before throwing the item up to them. Ida catches it and sees it was a megaphone. The two look down at Momo and nod at her. Thanks, Momo. Izuku yells at her before he takes the megaphone and holds it close to his chest as he curls back into his form. Okay, Ida, now, he yells, and Ida couldn't be asked twice as he throws Izuku toward the door. The speedster soars over the mob while spinning in the air as some of his classmates spot this while some from the other courses spot him. Is that Izuku? Miles yells before he gets squished by more students. Eventually, Izuku reaches the door as he slams into the wall above it, back first, and uncurls from his form, and grabs onto the pipe as he won't float away. He looks at the mob in front of him and grabs the megaphone. Okay, let's get everyone's attention, Izuku thought. He turns the megaphone on and places it near his mouth, and takes a deep breath before. Yo, will everyone be quiet and listen? Izuku shouts, causing feedback from the megaphone, which made the students close their eyes from the noise before the noise dissipates as they look at the door and see Izuku, with the megaphone in hand and looking at them with a serious expression. It's just the reporters from the morning outside. There's nothing to worry about or panic over. Everything's fine, everyone, he shouts as his voice echoes through the hallway. Everyone looks at him. People, we are UA students. We need to keep calm and show that we're the best. So, we must remain calm. I mean, look around, you're shoving people down to the floor and trampling them. You could get someone seriously hurt or even killed. We have to be calm and help each other out, not go all purge mode. Izuku shouts his piece to them as the students were stunned by his words and they started to calm down while others began to feel embarrassed by the way they were acting during this crisis. Hey look, it's the police, one student yells as they hear sirens coming from a distance. Izuku sighs as he lets go of the pipe and slowly floats down to the ground. Outside, the police started to come toward the school, causing the reporters and news crews to stop as they turn to the gate. Present Mike smiles, hearing backup coming. That's a rep. Get these dudes out of our station, Present Mike yells, using his quirk to make his point clear to the trespassers. Soon, the police arrived and started escorting the trespassers off grounds. After that whole fiasco, the students were able to return to their classroom where we see Class 1A in theirs, with Izuku and Momo standing in front of the class, by the podium. Ready, class rep? Momo asks Izuku in a professional tone, who nods. Why yeah, Izuku says, a little bit nervous. He looks at everyone and was getting a bit nervous until he sees Sonic up above, looking at him and smiling at him while giving him a thumbs up. Izuku smiles and takes in a deep breath as he looks at everyone with a calm expression. Hi everyone, I have an announcement to make. I want to thank those who voted for me to be the class rep. It was nice for you to think I'm suited for this, but I feel that this position is a bit much for me to handle. So I decided, with Momo's consideration, to switch positions. Meaning, she's now the class rep while I'll be the vice, Izuku says, and the class looks surprised by this announcement. Are you about this, Midoriya? Ida asks as Izuku nods while looking at him. Yeah, I'm sure of this, Ida. Like I said, I really don't like the position as a class rep, the main leader, but I like the sound of a de facto leader, you know. Plus, I'll be helping her out with the strong tasks and she'll handle the rest, Izuku says, with a grin at the sound of the position he was now in. He turns to Momo and smiles. So, Miss Class Rep, the stage is all yours, he says, taking a step from the podium as Momo smiles at him. Thank you, Izuku, Momo says. She steps to the podium and looks at the others. Okay everyone, let's get down to business with the rules and announce the class officers, she says as the class got confused by what she said. Yamo. What class officers? Jiro asks. Right. Izuku and I talked after the crisis from the break and discussed that we'd need more help managing things in the class and maintaining order. So, we discussed and found that we'll need class officers, people who will be our eyes and ears in class should we not be here. And, after discussing who suits this position best, we came to the concussion on who. So we name Ochako Yurak and Tenya Ida as the class officers of Class 1A. She says, Ida and Ochako were stunned by this announcement as they were nominated for this position. Are you about this, you two? Ada asks, stunned by this as he sees the two reps nod. Yes, you two helped me out so I could get everyone's attention. Plus, you were the one who saw the media outside. Izuku says with a smile, while Momo was also smiling. Ada couldn't believe that they trusted him with this as he started smiling as well. Thank you. I'm honored by this opportunity. Ada says as he bows at a perfect 90-degree angle. Yeah, thanks, you guys. Ochako cheers with a bright smile. Mina on the other hand pouts. Hey, how come Acha-chan gets to be a class officer while I don't? How come? Mina whines. Izuku just turns to her with a flat look. Mina, I know you too well. You'll most likely slack off during your work or dodge the meetings. Izuku says. Mina opens her mouth to say something but doesn't as she knows she was caught. She pouts and sits down in her seat. Darn it, Mina mutters, crossing her arms as the class laughs. But then, Aizawa clears his throat, making them look at him and see he was in his sleeping bag, looking at the two reps. If you're done messing around, we've still got things to do. Aizawa says, giving them a stern look to finish this. All right, sorry sir. Momo stutters as she quickly resumes the program. Outside by the school's entrance, Nezu, Recovery Girl, Midnight, and another teacher were standing at the gate, but it was destroyed as the remains were just dust and crumbles. How were ordinary members of the press able to bypass our security systems? Nezu asks with his hands in his pockets. No clue, none of the reporters or cameramen had quirks that are capable of doing this. Midnight says, someone else must have been behind this. A villain was actually able to infiltrate our school. But was this a show of power? A declaration for war? Nezu asks, looking at the destroyed gate or warning. Time skip, later that day. Time, 13:52 p.m. Today's training will be a little different. You'll have 4 instructors. I, All Might, and another facility member will be keeping tabs on you. Aizawa says, out of his sleeping bag as he looks at the class. The students were surprised by this move. No surprise for All Might will be there, but 3 pros teaching 1 class at the same time was something else. 4 pros. Is that because of the break-in? Izuku thought as Sonic shrugs his shoulders, floating next to him. Maybe. Sonic says as Zero raises his hand. What kind of training is this? Zero asks. Aizawa just pulls out a card with rescue. On it, rescue. You'll be dealing with natural disasters, shipwrecks, and stuff like that. Aizawa says, and this gets the class excited about more heroic training. Disasters, huh? Sounds like we're in for a big workout, huh? Kaminari says as the other students agreed. Totally. Mina yells with excitement. Real hero stuff. This is what separates the men from the boys. I'm shaking with excitement. Hiroshima says, punching his fist into his palm. Finally, just to show how good I am in water. Ribitasui said. Guys, I'm not finished yet. Aizawa says, causing the class to be quiet. What you wear in this exercise is up to you. I know you're excited about costumes. He says as he presses a button on his remote and the wall slowly shot out the cases that the students' hero outfits were in. But keep in mind that you haven't gotten used to them yet, and they might limit your abilities. This special training is at an off-campus facility, so we'll be taking a bus to get there. Aizawa says, and the class gets up from their seats and heads over to the wall to go and get their cases and get changed and ready for the trip. Rescue training. Izuku thought with a determined expression on his face, I've been waiting for this. It'll bring me one step closer to being the kind of hero he is. I'll do my best. Izuku thought as grabs his case and heads out to the locker room to go and get changed. Location, outside of the campus. Time, 14:10 p.m. Izuku was standing outside in his hero outfit, but he fitting on a new addition he added to the outfit on his head. Hey, Midori. Izuku turns and sees Mina and Ochako, in their hero outfits, coming toward him. Oh, hey girls. What's up? Izuku asks. Nothing much. We were coming to you when you saw you messing around with your head. Ochako says as Mina nods as they see what was on his head. Yeah, what are those for? Mina asks, pointing to what was around Izuku's head. Oh, right. Izuku says as he takes off what was on his head and shows them it was a pair of vintage motorcycle goggles that had black lenses. These are for me to see clear while I run, since the wind does get into my eyes and in case it rains. He explains. Oh, that's cool. But why do they look so retro? Ochako asks, looking at the goggles. They're not really that old. They're in fact, high-tech. Since they have this built-in display that shows me how fast I'm going and what direction I'm going. Plus there are some other features but I don't know what they are yet. Izuku says as he fits the goggles back onto his head. Oh, wow. That sounds really cool. Mina says, looking at the goggles, you know who made them? She asks and Izuku just shrugs his shoulders. Don't know. All I know is it was made by someone who's in the support course. Izuku says. Suddenly, a loud whistle blew through the air as the class turned and see Ida with a whistle in his mouth, standing near the bus they were going to take. Alright class 1A. Using your seat number, form 2 neat lines and enter the bus. Ida says before blowing his whistle again, to get the class into said lines. The others watch on with sweat drops on their heads. I see he's taking his class officer roll into high gear. The trio turn and see Momo walk up to them, watching Ada as she had a sweat drop on the side of her head. Yeah, the guy seriously needs to learn how to chill, Izuku says as Momo giggles and turns to him with a smirk. Are you going to make it your mission to do that? Momo asks as Izuku thinks about it and he too smirks. Maybe, Izuku says, with a sly tone. On the bus, class were in their seats but due to the different seat plan, Ada's system was thrown out of whack. He was sitting next to Mina as he looked to the floor in shame. The bus's open layout ruined my boarding strategy, Ida says, as a depressed aura appears around him. You really need to calm, Mina says as she pats the armor-wearing teen on his back. Izuku was sitting next to Tsuyu and Kirishima, and he was busy chuckling at this sight, finding it a bit funny. If we're pointing out the obvious that there's something I want to say. About you actually, Tsuyu says as she turns to Izuku who looks at her with a raised eyebrow. About me? What's on your mind, Asui? Izuku asks. I told you to call Tsu. Asui ... Utsu says. Sure, Tsu. What's up? Izuku asks. That quirk of yours. How is it when you're running? Tsu asks with a smile as Izuku was caught off guard by the question. He wasn't expecting that kind of question from her. Oh yeah, I've been thinking about that too. How does it feel when you're running, man? At high speed, Kirishima says, smiling as Izuku looked stunned by this. Wow, I wasn't expecting a question like that. How do I explain it? Izuku asks himself, trying to find the right words to say. Just say what you feel while you run. Tsu says. Izuku. Okay, it feels like. There's nothing ... yet ... it feels like everything. Izuku says as everyone was confused by that. Huh, Kaminari utters, with a raised eyebrow. What do you mean? He asks, confused by that as Izuku sighs and looks up to the roof. Insert Ost, in the tube from Surf's Up. It's something, a rush that comes to you when something happens. A feeling I really can't compare anything else to it. It's an experience not many people will ever feel and it makes it really special. To me, it's like the rhythm of the world. My way is to connect to the universe in a deeper sense. To me, it's everything, yet nothing at the same time. It's a sense of freedom like nothing is holding me back. Nothing to bother me. No past, no future. Just the now, the moment. To me, running is everything. Speed is everything. I don't know where I would be right now if I didn't have speed on my side. Izuku says, looking up to the roof while lifting his hand up to his face and looking at it as blue lighting surges around it. Everyone looks at him, awestruck by his words as they weren't expecting a deep insight from him like that, given his attitude since the year began. Whoa, that was deep. It's so cool to have a transformation and an emitter quirk like yours, Midoriya. You could do a lot of cool stuff with it. All I've got is Mind Strongen. It might be strong but it doesn't look that impressive. Kirishima says as he lifts his arm and turns on his quirk, resulting in it going spiky at the tips of his fingers. Izuku lowers his hand and turns to Kirishima. Dude, what? No way. I think it's awesome. You're defiantly pro-material with a quirk like that. Don't sell yourself short like that. Izuku says. You really think so? Kirishima asks and sees Izuku nods. I think it'd be easier if you had a powerful quirk. He says while turning off his quirk. Izuku just shakes his head. Like I said already, don't sell yourself short. All quirks can be powerful, if given the right time and attention to them, Izuku says with a smile as Kirishima sees this as he activates his quirk once more and looks at his hand, now having a newfound respect for it. Well, that my naval laser is the perfect combination for flashy and power. Aoyama says with a sparkling smile. Yeah, but it's super lame if it gives you a tummy ache, sweetie. Mina says as Aoyama had a downcast face. And Ost. Well then, out of all of us, it'd be Midoriya, Todoroki, and Bakugou who have pro quirks. Kirishima says. Bakugou looked over when the red-haired mentioned his name but turned away after. Sure, but Bakugou's always angry so he'll never be that popular. Midoriya will probably be the only one to get on the top 10 list faster than him. Tsu says, which causes Bakugou to blow up. What did you say? I'll kick your ass. Bakugou shouts at her while standing up. See, Tsu says, having her point proven. You know, we basically just met you. But your personality is basically flaming crap mixed with garbage. If Midoriya's beatdown on you didn't teach you a lesson on respecting others, I'd say he'll do it again. Kaminari says as Bakugou turns to him with a heated glare. You're gonna regret the day you apply to this school, you loser. I quote, I'll kill you. Bakugou yells at Kaminari who laughs as Ochako and Mina shake their heads at Bakugou's behavior while Momo found this conversation disgusting. Minutes pass and the buses stop in front of a large dome-like building. The students got off the bus and saw a person in a puffy spacesuit. Hello everyone. I've been waiting for you. The students were surprised to see this hero here in person. It's the space hero, 13. The hero who saved people all over the world. Izuku yells with excitement, again letting his fanboy side spill out. Yes, 13 is one of my favorite heroes. Uraraka yells with the same level of excitement, seeing her favorite hero there. I can't wait to show you what's inside. 13 says. This is gonna be awesome. The class says together. They walk into the building and was amazed by the size of it. There were buildings, mountains, waterfalls, and too many domes in it. Holy crap, it's like a theme park here, Kirishima said. A shipwreck, a landslide, a fire, a windstorm, and etc. I created this facility to train in different disasters. I call it the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, but you can call it the USJ. 13 explains the dome's layout. Just like Universal Studios Japan. The students thought, thinking about the irony of the building's layout. Aizawa walks to 13 noticing that someone wasn't here. Hey, shouldn't all might be here already? He was supposed to be here, Aizawa whispers at 13, who nods at him. Actually, it's something else, 13 says while holding up 3 fingers. He used up all his power while on the way here to school today. He's resting in the teacher's lounge right now. They whisper and Aizawa catches on to the hidden message. Great ... just great. I swear one of these days, I'll kill him myself, Aizawa says. The lights in the building were furring as everyone noticed something in the distance. Aizawa turns around and sees a purple portal open up. Stay together and don't move. 13, protect the students. Aizawa shouts as he and Vlad were getting ready. Kirishima looks down to the lower level and saw the portal. Whoa, what is that thing? Kirishima asks. People were walking out of the portal as Kirishima got curious. Wait, did the training start alright? I thought we were rescuing people, Kirishima says as Izuku took a small step to see what was going on. Stay back, Aizawa shouts. Izuku turns to Aizawa and sees him putting on his googles. This is real. Those are real villains, Aizawa says as the students was stunned by the news. As more people were exiting the portal as one of them had on hands all over their body as they look up to the stairs and spot the students. This was supposed to be a lesson on rescuing people, but now, it's turned into a lesson on surviving. In a futuristic, yet gloomy-looking city, where rain was pouring down from the heavens, a green blur was running around the city, going over buildings, into alleyways, and down the long highways and streets. Zooming onto one of these streets, we see Izuku with his hood up, and goggles on and running away from something big chasing him. It was a large grayish-black-like humanoid with white veins running along its body. It had several sharp teeth and a mouth with a wide smile. And his hair was somewhat similar to Izuku's, only it seemed to move on its own, and whatever this thing was chasing after Izuku. The two ran up a building's side. Well, more like Izuku was the one who was running up it while the gray humanoid climbed up it with its hands. When the two finally reached the top of the building, this was when the image froze as Izuku was in his running stance while the gray humanoid was in the air, ready to land. So, I know what you're thinking. Why am I being chased by that big ugly gray thing behind me? Why is it raining? And just where am I? Future Izuku narrates. This scene resumes as Izuku continues running away from the gray humanoid who lands on the roof and continues to give chase. Hey, you. I want to talk to you, the humanoid yells. Izuku turns around to the humanoid behind him and frowns before he faces forward, and speeds up as he jumps off the building to go over to another one. Is this too much? Did we skip a lot here? Am I going too fast? Well, that's kind of what I do. Come on, you guys should know me by now. Okay, how about this? Let's backtrack to where we last left off so you can understand just what happened to me and how I got into this situation. No. Suddenly the scene stops and starts to rewind at a fast pace, skipping through all the events that led to that moment and back to where we last left off. Date, the 7th of April 2236. Wednesday. Location, USJ. Center, UA. High School, Musutafu, Japan. Time, 14:39 p.m. The students and teachers watch from the top of the stairs as a purple portal opens by the fountain as people walk out of it. Kirishima got curious, seeing this, and thought this was part of the training. Wait, did the training start alright? I thought we were rescuing people, Kirishima says as Izuku takes a small step to see what is going on, but Aizawa holds his hand out, stopping him from stepping further. Stay back, Aizawa shouts. Izuku looks at his teacher and notices he was putting on his goggles and also notices the serious yet distressed expression on his face. This is real. Those are real villains, Aizawa says, and the students are stunned by the news. Over at the portal, the man with the hands clinging onto his body looks around for something. The only real heroes I see are 13 and Eraserhead, a voice says by the portal as one last figure walks out of the portal. It was a large, black humanoid monster with a very muscular body that had many scars on it. Its brain was exposed on the top of its head, while its large eyes were around it. He had a beak-like mouth with an array of sharp teeth. Perplexing. According to the schedule you retrieved from UA, All Might should be here as well. The voice speaks as the man holds his hand up, stopping the large figure standing next to him. The students and teachers heard this and figured out that they had to be the ones who caused all the havoc with the media and break-in earlier today. So, you scumbags used the press as a cover to sneak into the campus, Aizawa says, seeing the idea they used. He looks down at the bottom of the stairs and sees that the villains who had infiltrated through the portal were heading towards the stairs that the group was on top of. The students were stunned at this new information. Where is he? I went through the trouble in bringing so many friends that were eager to meet him. They want All Might, the great symbol of peace. I can't believe he's not here, the man with the hands over his body says before a dark idea comes to him. Maybe, if I kill a few kids, he'll come out to play. He says, looking up at the stairs and at the students and heroes. Some of the students were getting scared by this. Aizawa's scarf rose up with his hair while 13 just held out their hand in front of the students, either to protect them or to prevent them from running. That day, I learned a lot of things, but from the USJ, I picked up something from the pro heroes. Something that the pro heroes had to face on a daily basis. Future Izuku narrates while present-day Izuku had a serious expression, trying to get a grasp of the situation. It was the darkness they faced just to keep us all safe from it. We looked at these villains ... and pure evil looked right back at us. What? Real villains? No way. Hiroshima says, not believing things fully as he and the others looked down to the floor, seeing the villains marching toward them. If they were real villains, how'd? The real question is, why haven't the alarms gone off yet? The alarms sound off already, right 13? Momo asks as everyone looks around to see that no alarm going off. Good question. I'm not sure. The pro says, also looking around at the still alarms in place. Is the entire campus under attack? Or is this their only target? Todoroki asks. Either way, if the alarm sensors aren't being triggered, then one of those villains must have a quirk that's masking their presence here. They carefully chose this isolated facility as an entry point at a time when a class was being taught. They're fools for trespassing here, but they thought this out. Whatever their plan is, they must have a concert objective in mind. But what is it? Todoroki finishes as the classes flinch at the idea that the villains had something in mind ... But what is it? 13. Get them out of here and alert the main campus. Aizawa says, but realizes something. Actually, if they have the ability to block our sensors, then they might be blocking our regular communications too. Aizawa says, before he turns to one of his students, Kaminari, try using your quirk to connect the school. Aizawa says yes, sir. Kaminari says he went to his headphones to try and connect with the main campus, only to hear a loud static feedback from his headphone. No good, sir. They've even jammed my radio too. He says, dropping the connection while thinking about something. Aizawa sighs hearing this, as he sees that they were really stuck in the USJ, without any way to contact the outside world. I see. Guess we're on our own until we figure out a way to get a message to the main campus. Aizawa says he looks back down to the bottom and sees the villains were getting closer and reaching the stairs and realizes that it is now a race against time to stop them before they get to the top. 13. Protect the kids. I'll go and stop the villains from reaching the stairs and to you. He says, walking forward and getting ready to go into battle. Wait, what are you going to do? You can't fight all of them on your own. Even if you can nullify their quirks, your fighting style isn't suited to this. Your style is best suited for stealth and one-on-one fights. It's suicidal going down there without any backup, Izuku says in concern, knowing well that Aizawa couldn't take on all those villains by himself. Kid, let me give you some advice. You can't be a pro if you only have one trick. I thought you would know that the most problem child. Aizawa says as Izuku looks at him getting ready. We'll leave it to you, 13. Aizawa says with 13 nodding. The pro jumps down the stairs as 3 villains were waiting for him. Aizawa charges towards them as one of them has barrels on his fingertips. He was about to shoot when Aizawa quickly activated his quirk, erasing his and the others' quirks, and this caused the villains to panic and be confused by why were their quirks not working. Aizawa uses this moment to use his capture weapon and wrap the 3 up and send them into the air before pulling them back down and causing them to collide with each other's heads, knocking them out. The other villains were shocked by this before one finally recognizes Aizawa and his quirk due to a past encounter, and states that he could erase emitter and transformation quirks, not mutation quirk. This prompts another villain with 4 arms rushes at Aizawa to punch him, but Aizawa ducks under the strike and quickly throws a punch of his own onto the villain, causing the villain to stagger back. Aizawa backflips and throws his capture weapon and wraps the villain. His senses alert him of a presence behind him and he ducks down, barely dodging a punch from another villain who was behind him. During the duck, he flips his body and sends a kick onto the villain's chin, causing him to spit out saliva and stagger back before he draws his attention back to the villain he had in his capture tool. He starts spinning in place and uses the trapped villain as a wrecking as he swings towards the villains, hitting them with his makeshift wrecking before he eventually lets the villain go and sends him flying into a group of 7, knocking them into the ground as he recalls his tool and stands ready to take out more villains. There they go, trying to intimidate us. He is strong, and since his eyes are hiding behind those goggles, you really can't tell whose quirk is he erasing. He's making it strong for us to work together or rely on each other's powers. And when he does, the other one can attack. The handman said as Aizawa kicked a female villain's face while wrapping another one by the neck with his capture tool, and took him out. How annoying. The worst thing about dealing with pros is when they live up to all their hype. The handman says while scratching his neck with 2 fingers. Aizawa takes out another villain and looks at more as his hair flops down to its normal state, and the glowing yellow eyes narrow their eyes at this as it watches Aizawa's hair raise back up as he goes and battles against more of the villains. Back at the stairs, Izuku watches his teachers fight. Whoa, they're holding them off. I guess I shouldn't have underestimated him, Izuku says while in awe at this display of skill. He wonders if he could do the same thing. Mina looked back and saw him standing still, watching the fight below. Midori, what are you doing standing? We've got to move. Mina yells. This snaps Izuku out of his trances, and looks at her. Alright, Izuku yells before he takes off running to them. As they ran, Izuku quickly made it up to the front and ran next to 13, and he gained an idea. Wait, that's it, Izuku thought as he turned to 13. 13, Izuku yells and the space-themed hero turns to him. Yeah, 13 asks, looking at him. Let me go back to UA and alert everyone there, Izuku says, and 13 looks at him, with their visor having a confused expression. What? 13 says. I can get there in no time. I'm the fastest out of everyone here. I can go there, alert the headmaster that there are villains here, come back, and get everyone out of here, Izuku exclaims with a, I don't know, 13 says, feeling unsure at the moment of letting a student go when they were tasked with protecting them. It wasn't until Mina and Ochako started speaking. He's right, he can do that. If he can run around Japan in less than 10 minutes, he can get to UA in no time. Ochako yells, backing Izuku up on this. Yeah, he can. You have to let him go, 13. He's our best chance to contact UA, Mina yells. This causes 13 to think about it. They've seen the footage of the entrance exam and had seen just how fast Izuku could go. But was it wise to let a student go? With their mind made up, they turn to Izuku and give him an affirmative nod. All right, but hurry. We'll need the backup as soon as possible. 13 yells. Izuku looks at them and nods at them with a serious expression. Got it, Izuku shouts before he turns back to his class. Be right back, he yells as he turns back to the front and looks at the large metal door. He speeds up, turning into a green blur. He rolls into his form, and energy forms around him into spikes as he once again speeds up before crashing through the door and spinning out of the USJ. Once he made it out of the USJ dome, he spun in his form for a few more moments before flipping out of it and started running down the road as green lighting started shrugging off his body. Gotta go fast, Izuku shouts before he takes off, causing a sonic boom to go off in his wake as he bolts straight towards UA, hoping to at least find someone that'll help. Location, in a break room, UA High School, Misutafu, Japan. Time, 14:43 p.m. The number you have dialed is not in service or has been temporarily disconnected. Please check the number and try again. Thank you. That was what Toshinori heard from his phone after calling Aizawa and 13's phones. He sighs, knowing that he couldn't reach them as he had been trying to for the past 3 minutes. I can't get through to 13 or Aizawa. Then again, they are teaching Class 1A. Unlike me, who's neglecting his duties as a teacher since I spent all my time this morning's commute to work being a hero. That was a rookie's mistake. What was I thinking? Toshinori yells, slapping himself in the head at how stupid he was doing all that hero work while he was coming to school. Sure, he felt like he needed to help those in need, but he should have left it to the heroes who were on patrol. But he didn't, and look where that got him. Ran out of time using his quirk. He sighs and looks up at the ceiling, feeling bad that he was missing teaching the next generation of rescue protocols. Maybe I should head over there and deliver some inspiring words to the students at the end. Yeah, that could work. I guess I could go on and use the last 10 minutes of my hero form. Toshinori yells, with resolved energy in his body. He stands up from the couch and tenses himself, digging in deep as his body expands and grows, transforming into All Might. He smiles. Time to go see my students. He yells, ready to go. And where you might be heading to, Toshinori. Suddenly, a voice asks behind him as he freezes. He slowly turns around and sees someone. One of the few people in the world he was terrified of. He sees a short man who appears to be a possible combination of several different animals, including a dog, a mouse, and a bear, which would make him a chimera. He had the head of a mouse with circular black eyes, with a large scar over the right one, relatively square-shaped ears with pale pink insides slanting outwards from the top of his head, and an elongated muzzle with a small round nose. His fur was white and had large, dog-like paws with pink pads and a thin tail like that of a cat. He was wearing a white dress shirt, a dark red tie around his neck, a black double-breasted waistcoat, and matching dress pants. He also wore orange lace-up sneakers with incredibly thick soles which seemed to be quite large on him, resembling a lot like Izuku's casual high tops. Hello, Nezu sir. All Might nervously greet this man, animal, whatever he was. That's me, the one who could be a mouse or a dog or a bear. But the most important thing is, I'm the principal of the school. The man, Animal says, now known as Nezu, proudly declaring with a smile. All Might crouches down to Nezu. Your fur looks well groomed today. You're looking extra glossy today, sir. All Might compliments his boss, who walks up to him and nods. The secret is carotene. I'm not too sure if you humans can get this extra shine, but we can discuss that on a later day, Nezu says while he fishes out something from his coat. He fishes out a tablet and opens it and shows All Might. Take a look at this. It says you resolved 3 incidents in 1 hour. He says, showing All Might a news article of himself and the incidents he resolved on the way to school. This made All Might start to sweat. All Might was saying, but Nezu holds up his hand, cutting him off. Well, I really can't take you into fault here. It's mainly due to the ruffians in this city who wreak havoc onto the city, despite you now living here. But you also have to learn not to react when you hear of an incident. You haven't changed in all these years, Toshinori. Why, I can still see the young boy Nana brought here all those years ago. Thank you, sir, All Might says with a sweat drop running down the side of his head. Why is he bringing that up now? He thought. But you must understand that your heroic acts are limited now due to your condition. Plus you also have the added work and training one for all's newest holder. You insist on remaining as the symbol of peace. And the only way you can justify that is by staying out of the spotlight is by teaching this next generation of heroes, Nezu says while he walks past All Might who, while still crouched down, turns around and watches him as he starts to release steam from his body. That's why I gave you this job, and oh my, you're smoking. That can't be good. Nezu says, finally noticing the steam All Might was emitting before he lets out a cough and puffs down back to his skinny form. It seems that you might want to stay here in the lounge and rest a little while longer, he says, walking over to the couch. But sir, Tashinori was trying to speak, but once again, Nezu cuts him off with a hand up. The other teachers will understand. They're more than capable of teaching the students. But now that you are a teacher here, All Might, I really do wish you'd prioritize your students more than your heroics. They deserve it. After all, there are other hero agencies throughout the city. Let them deal with the ruffians who plague this city, Nezu says before he climbs up onto the couch and takes a seat while looking at the tea and kettle that are on the table in front of the couch. Tashinori scots over to him. Yeah, I understand, sir. I was actually going to go over to the USJ to make an appearance and deliver some inspirational words to the students now if you don't mind. Tashinori says that while he had a feeling about something, he didn't know why, but his non-existent gut was telling that. Nezu nods as he starts preparing some tea. Even if you were to go now, you'd have to return almost immediately. So you might as well stick around and listen to some of my teaching methods, Nezu says while he puts out 2 cups. This makes Tashinori's previous sweat drop return, but this time, enlarged. Great ... This is turning into a teaching lecture. You also haven't changed, sir, Tashinori thought, seeing how little his previous principal had changed over the years. Nezu finishes preparing the tea and holds one of the cups to Tashinori. Here, drink up. It's herbal tea, Nezu says, and the sweat drop on Tashinori's head grows. And there's the tea, Tashinori thought, knowing just how much Nezu loved tea. Nezu takes a sip of his tea and enjoys it before he looks at Tashinori. Now, let's start with Nezu says as he starts his lessons, but boom, boom. He gets cut off by 2 loud explosions which made the entire building shake from the shockwaves the explosions caused. What was that? Tashinori yells. He looks around the room, alerted as he thinks the school is under attack. Nezu's ears twitch from another loud explosion going off and he hums. It sounded like sonic booms. But that's impossible since the school has a non-flying zone on its premises. So, what could be traveling that fast to break the sound barrier constantly? Nezu asks, pondering on this since the only thing fast enough to break the sound barrier were F-15 seconds. And the thrust SSC, but those 2 vehicles were decommissioned decades ago. One last sonic boom goes off, this time close enough to rattle the windows as Tashinori frowns in thought before realization strikes him. Wait, Tashinori says, realizing there was one other thing that could cause sonic booms. All Might. And that thing arrives in the room. Izuku swings the door open, startling Tashinori who jumps in the air, and turns around and sees him, with a panicked expression. We need help, Izuku yells. Young Midoriyes here. Tashinori yells as blood shoots out of his mouth due to the startle and panic he had. Ah, your successor, the speedster, Nezu says as he sips on his tea while looking at Izuku with interest. Izuku turns to Nezu and just looks at him. Oh, yeah, that's me, Izuku says before he turns to Tashinori. All Might, villains broke into the USJ, and Mr. Aizawa's fighting them alone. He yells and Tashinori and Nezu look at him in alert. What? Tashinori yells. How? They broke into the USJ. Via a portal or something and a lot of villains came out. Mr. Aizawa ordered 13 to keep us safe while he went down and fought them off. 13 ordered us to get out and I said I'd run over here to get back up. Izuku yells. Nezu frowns in deep concern as he sets his cup down. This is most troubling. Villains are here and are wreaking havoc on my school and causing my students to panic. Nezu says lowly as he tries to hold back his anger. He looks over to Izuku. Why haven't the alarms alerted us on this matter soon? He asks. One of the villains there must have a quirk that's jamming the systems. That's what we think at the moment, Izuku says and Nezu's frown deepens. I see, Nezu says as he hops off the couch and starts unfastening his collars. I'll go ahead and put the school in an emergency shutdown and gather them staff for this. Tashinori, couldn't tell them of the matter. He asks and Tashinori nods. Yes sir, Tashinori says. He pulls out his phone and speed dials the cops. What can I do? Izuku asks, looking eager to help out. Nezu turns to him. I suggest you stay here and wait while we go and rescue your classmates, Nezu says and Izuku looks shocked by this. What? No way. My friends are in danger and I can't sit here when I can do something, Izuku says as he turns around. I'll meet you guys there, he says as he preps himself to run out of the room. Wait, kid, don't. Tashinori yells, trying to stop Izuku, but the boy just bolts out of the room and out of UA. Damn it, he yells, slapping his head. Nezu couldn't help but laugh at this. I can see why you picked him. He reminds me a lot of you really, in his own unique way, Nezu says, laughing a bit still while Tashinori couldn't deny that. Yeah, Toshinori says. I need to get over there and help out. He says as he dials the number while puffing, calling OFA out once more. Izuku runs out of UA and down the road leading back to the USJ with a serious expression. Don't worry guys, I'm coming back, Izuku thought before he sped up, kicking up a large portion of dust and once again breaking the sound barrier in his wake as he raced to his friends. What he wasn't aware, he was being watched by 3 observers as they chased after him. Should I do it now? A voice, sounding like a female's voice, asks. No, let young Izuku get back to the USJ and assist his friends. He needs to so he can finally gain the control he needs for what is needed. I shall tell you when the moment is right to do it. For now, we observe. Another voice spoke, sounding like a male's once as it sounded wise and knowledgeable. Okay, the female voice says as they turn back and observe Izuku, waiting for the right moment to act. Location, USJ. Center, UA. High School, Musutafu, Japan. Time, 14:46 p.m. Izuku makes it to the USJ dome in record time as he runs up the entrance into the dorm. Once he jumps through the hole he made earlier, he was greeted by that weird purple portal right in front of him and was sucking some of his classmates in several other portals. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Izuku yells as he tries to come to a halt, but due to the speed he is going, he just skids and couldn't stop in time as he crashes right into the main purple portal and falls through the portal until he lands on strong ground face first. That hurt. Izuku grunts, he lifts himself off from the ground and dusts himself off before he starts looking around just where he is. He looks and sees that he is in a city that was destroyed and on fire and he is on top of a tall building. Whoa, the whole city is on fire. I must be in the fire zone of the USJ, he says as he observes the city and the fire. Just as he was about to try and look for a way off the building, a sudden green and black energy like shockwave struck him, sending him down to his knees and starting to glitch out in place. This goes on for a bit before the glitching suddenly stops as he starts panting. What was that Izuku utters while trying a few deep breaths. He finally calms down his panting as he stands back on his feet, trying to figure out what just happened to him, but decides to ignore that for now. And no time to think about it. I need to find a way out of here, he says. He resumes looking for a way down this building until he finds a piece of scrap that was next to him. He looks at the scrap and sees it is flat like a board. He smirks, and I know just how, he says as he walks over to the scrap, kicks it up, and grabs it before turning around to the edge of the building and smirks. Izuku places on his new goggles and lifts his handkerchief up to make it like a mask. Quick little stretch, and here we go. He stretches a bit before he runs toward the edge and leaps off the building. Insert Ost, Crisis City from Sonic Generations. WOOOHHH. Izuku yells out, free-falling next to the building, scrap in hand as he looks down and sees a railing system, most likely a destroyed train track system, and grins. He positions himself where he had his feet on the scrap board and aims for the railing, lands on it, and starts grinding it while traversing through the flaming city. While grinding on the railings, he was forced to change some tracks due to some of them being destroyed, or he had to jump off the rails to grind, skate onto the buildings next to the tracks. Eventually, Izuku had to ditch the scrap board and started running onto the roads of the city, sliding under destroyed trucks and some debris, jumping over cars and wall running onto some buildings when the road was too occupied by cars and debris. Okay, if I was an exit inside of a city zone that was on fire, where would I be? Izuku asks as he runs down a road. Sonic appears next to him and looks around for him until he spots something. Maybe it's by where that large blinking arrow is, Sonic says while pointing at something. Izuku looks at him and sees he is pointing towards something. He follows where he was pointing and sees a large green blinking arrow on the other side of the city. Oh, you're right. Thanks, Sonic, Izuku says as Sonic nods at him, smiling. No problem, buddy, Sonic says. Izuku turns a corner and starts running toward the arrow when they hear a loud explosion go off not too far from where they were. What was that? Sonic asks. Don't know. Let's go check it out, Izuku says as he turns down a road and starts boosting toward that area. At the area where the explosion went off, we see Ajiro and Ada battling against a large group of villains who were surrounding them. Some of them were rushing toward the two boys, but the two boys kicked and smacked them before any of them could get close to them. This isn't looking good, man, Ajiro says, panting a bit while sweating. Ada nods. I know, there's just too many of them, Ada says. And they're not giving us a chance to run or formulate a plan to counter them. He yells. He sees one of the villains rush at him and he runs toward the villain and sends a fast, heavy kick to them in the chest, with his quirk boosting the kick, sending the villain flying back and landing on the ground, holding her chest in pain. Ada steps back to where Ajiro is as he smacks a villain back with his tail. The tail quirk user looks at Ada and notices something. How long can you keep going? Ajiro asks, seeing Ada's exhaust emitting some black smoke while also seeing he was panting. Not for long. If I stay in this zone for much longer, then my engines are definitely going to overheat and eventually stall, Ada says, while mentally cursing himself for not installing a cooling unit inside his suit to cool his engines down. Yeah, this heat's getting to me too. I don't know how long we can last against guys. Ajiro says. Come on guys, it's just 2 brats. 2 while there are 20 of us. We can take them if we rush them. One of the more confident villains yells, causing the other. Guess we have to fend off these villains until help arrives. Ida says as he goes into a stance and revs his engines, ready for the villains. Yeah, Ajiro says as he shifts into his fighting stance. The 2 wait for the villains to come at them so they can counter, and they don't need to wait long as one of the villains charges at them with a metal bat raised in the air as it lights up in a blaze. Die-gah. The villain was yelling, but he suddenly cries out in pain when a green spiky collided into his chest before he was sent flying back. The spun in the air for a bit before it unfolded and Izuku lands on the ground. Hello there. Izuku greets the now shocked villains. He looks back and sees his 2 classmates and he lowers his handkerchief mask. Hey, guys. Fancy meeting you here, he says in a cheerful tone. Midoriya. Ajiro asks in shock at seeing his vice rep with them. In the flesh. Izuku says, flashing a grin. How did you get here? And how are you back? Ida asks. I got to UA and alerted the teachers there on the pressing matters here and ran back to help you guys escape, but I sort of ran into one of those portals when I got back and couldn't stop in time and landed here not too far away and been looking for a way out. And found it, but I heard an explosion and ran over here to see what was up, and I see you guys in a pickle. Izuku explains as the 2 students nod, digesting his explanation. What the? One of the villains utters, surprised by Izuku's sudden appearance. It's just another brat. This doesn't change the fact that we outnumber them, 3-19. The same CCKY villain yells. This once again rallies up the other villains who were now confident, as they did have the numbers advantage over the 3 students. Izuku starts the villains surrounding them and frowns. He looks back to the 2 and holds up one finger. 1 sec, got to take care of this. Izuku yells before he runs around the villains, turning into a green blur as he starts punching and kicking them in various places. He comes to a stop in the same spot he was in. All the villains grunt in pain before collapsing onto the floor, all knocked out. Okay, done, he says, standing back up and dusting his hands clean. Ajiro utters in shock as he looks at the fallen villains around him. Nice work, Midoriya. Ida says, also in shock after what happened. I try my best, Izuku says, shrugging his shoulders. Just then, the 3 felt a momentary tremor. What was that? Ajiro asks. That felt like it came from outside the zone. What could be going on out? Ida says. Don't know, but I think we should get out of here, Izuku says as the other 2 nods. Indeed, yeah, the 2 say. Izuku grins. Great, now hold on to your stomachs, boys, Izuku says as Ajiro and Ida were confused. Why were we? Ajiro was saying before he felt a big gush of wind blow right at him, and he soon found himself, Ida, and Izuku not only outside of the fire zone but were outside of USJ. What? He utters, completely dumbfounded by what had happened. There, you guys stay here while I go and get everyone else out, Izuku says. Back in a flash, he yells before he speeds back into the USJ. Ajiro and Ida just stand there, in shock and in awe. That guy really is fast, Ajiro says after a while, and Ida couldn't help but nod to that statement. Agreed, Ida says while wondering if he could go that fast too. And Izuku runs around the USJ, going through the mountain, squall, and landslide zones he could and beating all the villains he comes across until he found his classmates and took them out of the zones in USJ. Where Ida and Ajiro were, the only zone he avoided was the shipwreck zone due to the water. He didn't want to get near it. He eventually even got 13, and the others who were on the stairs out after finding the pro was taken out of commission with their back looking like it was torn to shreds. He was running down the stairs since he still had to find Tsuyu, Mainta, Hagakure, and Aizawa since they were unaccounted for. He thought that his classmates were most likely in the shipwreck zone, and he blamed his fear of water for stopping him from going over to check. Okay, just got to find them and I'm done, Izuku says, reaching the bottom of the stairs and passing the unconscious bodies of the villains Aizawa had beaten. Just when he was going to go take a look at the water zone, he heard a loud cry of pain. Stopping by a bush, he looks at the center and freezes at what he saw. He saw a severely injured and bloody Aizawa on the ground with the large black, bird-faced figure sitting on top of him, twisting his right arm at an unnatural angle while blood was seeping from it. You can erase people's quirks. That's irritating but nothing impressive if you ask me. When faced with true devastating power, you might as well be a quirkless child. Izuku heard the villain who had hands around his body speak with a chuckle. He could see Aizawa was fighting through the pain to remain conscious while turning his head to the beast as his eyes glowed red and his hair went up, signaling that he had erased its quirk. But the beast just smashed Aizawa's other arm to the ground, which left a fist-sized crater as Aizawa's left arm twitched a bit before going limp as well like its partner. What? But I saw Mr. Aizawa use his quirk on him. So, that beast shouldn't have been able to use his quirk and break his arm ... UNLESS ... It's that strong to do it without one. Izuku thought in shock as he watched the beast roughly grab Aizawa's head and lift it up before the beast slammed his head down onto the ground, creating a crater in the concrete. No way, Izuku utters in shock and horror after seeing his teacher get defeated in such a brutal way. Just then, that purple rap villain appears next to the handy villain. Kurogiri, did you manage to kill 13? The villain with hands around his body asks the villain next to him. The rescue hero is out of commission. But I'm afraid that were issues before I could wrap the children into the zones. Tamura Shigaraki. The warp villain now called Kirigiri says as the villain with hands turns to him. Huh. The villain with hands, now known to be Tamura Shigaraki, utters, confused by what his partner said. What do you mean by that? He asks. A student had managed to get out before I could even arrive at the stairs and made it outside and most likely altered the other heroes of our presence here. Kirigiri says furthermore, this student had managed to escape his zone but also managed to take the students who were scattered around this facility out of their zones and bring them to the outside, but also defeated all the villains we had brought in a matter of moments. He says. This didn't please Shigaraki well as he started to shake in rage and roughly scratch his neck. Kirigiri ... You fool ... If you weren't our warp gate, I'd tear apart every last atom in your body, Shigaraki said as he scratched his neck a bit more before suddenly stopping and lowering his hands. There's no way we can win now if dozens of pros show up to stop us. It's game over. Back to the title screen. And I was looking forward to finishing this today. Damn it, let's just go home, Shigaraki said as Izuku heard the conversation and was confused by this. They're ... leaving ... just like that. Izuku asks. Sonic appears next to him and is also confused. Something about this doesn't seem right, Sonic says, and Izuku nods since he is getting a bad feeling about this. Oh, before we leave, let's make sure that the symbol of peace is broken, Shigaraki said as he turned to the water. Izuku turns to where he was looking and sees Mintia, Tsuyu, and Hagakure in the water, all looking terrified. Let's wreck his pride, Shigaraki says as he disappears and reappears in front of the students. Let's make this hurt, Shigaraki yells while moving his hands up toward Tsu and Hagakure's faces. Izuku's world goes into slow motion as he sees Shigaraki's hands slowly move towards the two fear-frozen girls' faces, and while he had no idea what Shigaraki's quirk could do, he had this instant images flash in his mind where the girls were killed with their bodies floating in the water, with it turning red from their blood. The world returns to normal speed as Shigaraki places his hands over Tsuyu's and Hagakure's faces, and all was silent as nothing happened. Shigaraki knew what was going on. You really are so cool, Eraserhead Shigaraki says while looking over his shoulder to see that Aizawa was still awake and his quirk was activated while blood flowed down his face, canceling Shigaraki's quirk and saving the girls' lives. The beast raises Aizawa's head one more time before smashing it into the concrete again. Insert Ost, at the speed of force from Zack Cinder's Justice League. Suddenly, Izuku's eyes flash blue with green, and blue lighting suddenly sparks from his body as he bolts from his bush and rolls into his form, screaming in anger. He soars through the air, barreling toward the villain and his classmates at high speed as sudden images of certain new moves begin to appear in his mind. Moves that felt familiar to him, but he'd put that thought back for later as he sees one particular move he felt was right for this moment. He looks at Shigaraki and locks onto him and homing attack. Izuku shouts, which causes Shigaraki to turn around to see what is going on, only to be stuck in the cest by the boy's move. This sends the villain flying towards the fountain and crashing right into its walls. Both Kirigiri and the large black bird-faced figure turn their attention when they see Izuku, who flips back, unfolds from his form, and stands in between the others and them with an angry look. The green and blue lighting surged around his body in a furious manner. Tsuyu, Minta, and Hagakure were surprised and shocked to see Izuku there. Midoriya. Minta yells, disbelief. In his tone, what's he doing here? I don't know. Hagakure stutters, shaking silently, since she is terrified of what had happened. She was this close to dying if it wasn't for Mr. Aizawa's and Izuku's interventions. She turns to Tsuyu. Are you okay, Tsu? The invincible girl asks. Why yeah, I'm okay ... but ... Tsuyu utters. She is also clearly terrified since she is close to dying. Shigaraki got up from the water fountain. He was very angry, staring at Izuku. You, spoil rotten, brat, how dare you do that to me? He groans from the pain of the homing attack. Leave them alone. Don't you dare lay a hand on them. If you want to hurt someone, then go ahead and try and take me on instead. Izuku yells, the surging lighting intensifying as Shigaraki looks at the aura around his body, that lighting surging off him. What is it? Is this making him stronger? Shigaraki thought while he stood up and spat out some blood from his mouth. You know, you're just a spoiled brat thinking you're better than us. Oh well, you're nothing but a bug to be squashed. I'll end this very quickly. Namu, kill that little brat, he yells, pointing at Izuku. The black figure, now known to be Namu, lets out a loud screech and chases Izuku with a fist up in the air, ready to punch Izuku. The three were about to yell at him to move out of the way, but to their shock, they saw Izuku duck under the punch at the last second and punch the Namu right in the gut, causing it to screech in pain. But he wasn't done there as he jumps in the air and delivers a heavy kick onto its chin before he twisted his body and sends a roundhouse kick onto the side of the Namu's head, sending it flying to the side and crash into the wall. Everyone was shocked by this. And no way. Minta was stunned, trying to find the right words to say. Kick that monster in the face and send it flying to the wall. Hagakure finishes Minta's sentence, in shock at what she witnessed. Tsuyu was also shocked but silent as she watched Izuku land back onto the ground, seeing he was staring right at Shigaraki, his eyes glowing with intense energy. How did that boy attack like that? Kurogiri asks, in shock. Shigaraki was too shocked by what he had just seen as he saw the Namu was getting back up from the wall it was sent flying to. He then looked at Izuku and saw he was looking at him with a serious look and for some reason, and that set him off in the wrong way as he started scratching his neck furiously. He had enough. No. That's it. You want to play with the big boys now, huh, brat? Well, you got it. Shigaraki roars out. NOMU. Forget fighting All Might. Kill this brat and bring me his head. He yells. The Namu hears this and screeches. Izuku frowns and just shifts into a fighting stance. He was ready. Bring it. Izuku yells. The Namu charges toward him and Izuku runs toward Namu before he rolls into his form, going in with a charging homing attack. The two meet in the middle of the center as Namu throws a punch at Izuku, but the boy easily evades the attack and hits the creature with the homing attack. But this time, he sends it up in the air with him as he unfolds from his and goes down to it with a diving kick right into Namu's head and sends it crash back to the ground. Grand Smash. Izuku yells out the new move he just used onto Namu as it gets back up from the center and he acts fast. He jumps into the air and started throwing high speed into the air. Sonic Boom. This new move actually created a barrage of shockwaves which were sent to Namu, who finally got up from the crater, only to get hit by the shockwaves. Izuku sends one last Sonic Boom to the Namu and lands back on the ground as he waits to see what was for the Namu as the dust covers where it was. He heard it screech and saw it blast out of the dust cloud and straight toward him as it starts sending a barrage of punches at him. But Izuku just easily ducked, evaded, and dodged each of the punches it sent to him. The students and villains were watching this battle in awe, shock, and in anger as Tsuyu, Hagakure and Mina got out of the water and to where Aizawa's body to get him out of the battle zone to help immediately. It's okay, Mr. Aizawa. We'll get you to help. Hagakure yells, tears brimming from her eyes at seeing the state their teacher was in. He looked more dead than alive. Aizawa actually regains consciousness and cracks his uninjured eye open to see what is happening and sees his students were carrying him out of there. He looks back to where he saw the Namu and sees Izuku effortlessly dodge all it punches it was sending toward him and sees the expression Izuku had. "K kid." Aizawa thought, win this kid. I believe in you. He thought as the last thing he did before fading back to unconsciousness was crack a smile. Back at the battle, Izuku was busy ducking, dodging all the Namu's attacks it was throwing at him, and he was getting bored. So, after dodging another punch, he speeds up his speed and jumps over the Namu as it is in mid-punch. The Namu sees him in the air above, looking at him with a serious look, and when it is about to try and hit him, it suddenly gets hit by an invincible barrage of punches as it's sent flying back. Speed burst barrage. Izuku whispers the attack while landing back on the ground. He turns to Shigaraki and gives him a smirk. "Come on, is that the best your guys got?" He asks, and Shigaraki just grits his teeth while grabbing the fountain's wall with his hand, and Izuku sees that the section of the fountain's wall he was holding suddenly decays away, catching Izuku's attention. So, that must be his quirk. Got to be careful when he touches something. You CCKY brat. You think that's it, huh? Guess what? Namu doesn't just have a strength enhancement quirk, it's also got hyper regeneration and shock absorption quirks. So all your attacks are useless since it'll keep getting up. Shigaraki shouts in anger as Namu gets back up and screeches once more. This causes Izuku to look at it for some time, now with this new information that was given to him from Shigaraki when he gets an idea. Really, that's all he's got. Okay, thanks for telling me that, dry skin. Izuku yells as he turns around and runs away from the screen, leaving the two villains in confusion about what he did. That's it. He ran away. Shigaraki questioned what just happened before he started to laugh. That CCKY brat ran away. Haha. Oh man, this is rich. He laughs, thinking that Izuku had run away from the fear of Namu, but Kurogiri had other thoughts. I don't think now's the time to be celebrating. This mission was a failure. I suggest we leave now. Kurogiri says, mentioning their real plan to kill All Might. Shigaraki stops laughing and turns to him. Why's that? The brat's gone. Probably got scared once he learned about Namu's quirks. Oh, well, guess we'll try again next time. Kurogiri, open up a portal back. Shigaraki says, and Kurogiri does so as a portal appears behind them. The hands-wearing villain turns to Namu. Namu, come on. Let's go. He commands the creature as it starts walking over to the two. Just before it could reach them, the three heard something approaching toward them fast. They turn, looked to see what it was and saw a green blur with blue and green lighting surging off it as it collided with the Namu, sending back a bit from Shigaraki and Kurogiri as the two saw it was still standing, but its arm was taken clean off from its body as the blue leaves. What? Shigaraki was confused by what happened. Namu's arm regenerates as the blur returned and once again, collides with it, sending it back again and this time taking off its leg and arm. The blur runs away and returns again, colliding with the Namu each time it did, taking off pieces of its body with each collision. The blur was actually Izuku, who was running around the dome in a circle, building up as much kinetic force as he could and using it to strike the Namu with each pass. With each of his rounds, his speed increased to the point where the very earth split open from the sheer speed. The lighting around him was also building up to a high point. Deciding that it was time to finish this, Izuku picks his pace up to his max speed and went for it. He ran around the USJ dome and ran toward the Namu's location one last time. He reaches the location and sees it was busy trying to pick itself up while struggling to heal, and he goes for it. He rolls back into his and locks onto it as all of the green and blue lighting rushes along with him. Spin dash Detroit smash. Izuku yells out his move as he crashes right into the Namu, with it screeching out in pain as the impact creates a large EMP blast, going off from ground zero, throughout the USJ and eventually, out of the dome and throughout the city, and like last time, most parts of Japan and outer space. Once the blast dissipated, Shigaraki waved his hands, clearing the dust that was floating around the area as he looked at where the Namu was, to see what had happened to it when that green blur struck it. The dust starts to clear away and sees two figures in the spot where Namu was. The dust finally cleared away for Shigaraki to see what had happened, and to his utter disbelief, he sees Izuku on his knees, panting and sweating a bit. On the ground behind him was Namu, lying in a massive crater, smoking from some spots of its body, utterly defeated. Izuku had won. Izuku, 1. Big, ugly beast, 0. Izuku thought, while cracking a small smile, exhausted from the fight. No. He hears Shigaraki speak and looks at him to see he was in shock. No, Namu, get up. The boss fight hasn't even started yet. Don't you dare disconnect yet. Get up and ready for the main fight. Shigaraki shouts, trying to command Namu to stand up, but it didn't. He angrily turns to Izuku and glares at him. You did this. You cheated. You hacker. I don't know how, but you cheated. No human could produce that much heat from their body and survive. Shigaraki yells, throwing a fit. Tamura Shigaraki we must leave we've lost. Kurogiri says, seeing that their mission was now an utter failure. However, Shigaraki didn't listen and just grit his teeth while scratching his neck. All this went to hell, and it was thanks to one Speedy Brat. He glares at said Speedy Brat with such anger in his eyes. No. Not until I turn that hacker into dust. Shigaraki shouted as he charged towards Izuku. Izuku was panting and saw he was coming at him. With his hands out and stretched at him, he remembers what happened to the wall he grabbed while he fought the Namu, so without thinking much, he performs a windmill on the ground and speeds up, using the speed to create enough force to send out a sonic boom kick, with the shockwave striking the dry-skinned villain's chest, knocking the literally wind out of him and groan as he is sent flying back to where he was, crashing and rolling across the ground until he came to a stop. Shigaraki grunts out loudly while trying to fill his lungs back with air as he slowly got back to his feet and turned to Izuku, who was glaring at him, eyes blue as the dual lighting returned. Now. It's your turn. Izuku yells as he rolls into his form once more and grinds onto the ground, charging up for a homing attack. Shigaraki sees this and panics. Kurogiri, gets us out of here. Shigaraki yells, and Kurogiri couldn't be told twice as he forms a portal behind them and it quickly consumes them. Just as Izuku launches at them, they portal away and Izuku crashes right through the fountain, and flopping on the other side. Damn it, they got away. Izuku yells, punching the ground in frustration and letting the villain escape. He started panting again and lays on the floor, feeling more exhausted than he was previously. Guess that last attack out a lot out of me, he says as he just looks up to the dome ceiling and lets out a sigh of relief and calmness. Man. What a fight that was. Izuku says as Sonic appears next to him. Tell me about it, Sonic says, lying down next to him. The ghostly hedgehog turns to him and smiles. You did great out there, Izuku, he says as Izuku turns to him and smiles as well. Thanks, Sonic, Izuku says. He looks back to the ceiling while lifting up his right hand to his face and looks at it and smiles. Guess I finally learned how to activate you, he says as blue lighting sparks around his hand, dancing along his fingers and palm. Suddenly, the large doors to the dome burst open, alerting Izuku and Sonic as they sat up and looked at the entrance and saw a large amount of dust in the area. Fear not, young Midoriya. A loud voice shouts from the door before a yellow blur shoots from the dust cloud and lands in the center of the dome, creating a little quake as the yellow blur revealed to be All Might, without his suit's jacket and tie and his shirt sleeve rolled up. Hope has arrived. Why, for I am here. All Might was saying his trademark saying when he stopped and noticed all the villains that Aizawa took care of were still knocked out and Izuku was sitting on the ground, looking at him. All the action's done, All Might. All the villains in the zones are knocked out thanks to me, and the ones on the ground next to you were taken care of by Mr. Aizawa. The main bosses behind this escaped thought, so that's the bad news. Also, what took you so long? Izuku yells, a little annoyed by how late his mentor was. All Might actually had the audacity to look sheepish at his question. We needed to get all available heroes from UA. Here, so I had to carry them all. All Might says, "Aha, I see. Now, since the crisis has been dealt with thanks to you," All Might says while looking around, "how about I help you out of here?" He asks and Izuku smiles at the offer. "Yeah, I'd like that," Izuku says, standing up as All Might goes over to him and helps him leave the dome and to the outside to go and get proper help from the medics. Insert Ost, calling all Autobots from Transformers, the last night. All Might and Izuku make it out of the USJ to the outside to see the heroes from UA, attending to the kids while some were attending to Aizawa and 13. Kirishima looks and sees Izuku and All Might walking out of the dome. "Guys, there he is," Kirishima yells, causing everyone to look All Might and Izuku. Midoriya, Izuku. Most of Class 1 rush toward Izuku as All Might lets him stand on his own and walks over to the other heroes to discuss this incident further as the details are coming in. "Hey guys." Izuku greets his friends and classmates as they rush over to him and start bombarding him with questions about his condition. Eventually, Izuku had to quiet them down so he could tell them, Guys, I'm fine. Really, the villains didn't hate me, I'm just a bit tired but fine." The villain stood no chance against this fast boy, he says, pointing at himself with a big grin. "Izuku." Two pink blurs rush at him and collide with him, nearly taking him off his feet, but he catches himself and balances as he looks down at what crashed into him and sees Mina and Ochako clinging onto him while shaking a little. He sees this and knows why they were like this. "Girls, relax, I told you that," Izuku says, and Mina and Ochako look up at him, with tears in their eyes. "Are you sure? You're not hurt?" The two girls yell, worried about him, but Izuku just smiles at them gentle. "Girls, I'm fine. I'm not hurt. Just a bit tired is all, but I'm fine. I'm fine and I'm safe," Izuku says as the girls sniff a bit before they just hug him close and sob a little. Izuku smiles and wraps his arms around them. The others smile at this, seeing this was cute for childhood friends to hug. "Now," the female voice from before asks. "Yes, no." The male voice says, "Stop Ost at 202. Insert Ost, that's a big magnet from Transformers, Age of Extinction." Mina and Ochako let Izuku eventually and were about to say something when they notice something going on with him. Izuku saw the expression they were making and got curious. "Hey guys, what's wrong?" Izuku asks. Izuku ... "Is that a new trick you're doing?" Ochako asks and Izuku raises an eyebrow at her question. Confused. What are you talking about?" Izuku was saying as he looks down at himself but stops when he sees his body was emitting an orange glow. "Midoriya, are you doing this?" Izuku heard Nezu speak as the teachers walk over to see what was going on and saw Izuku glowing. "No, I'm not. I swear," Izuku yells, starting to panic as the glowing intensifies, with everyone now getting worried. All Might steps forward to Izuku and looks at him. "Young Midoriya, just remain calm," All Might says, trying to ensure Izuku that things would be alright. But the glowing didn't stop since it consumes Izuku, who turns to them. "Guys," Izuku says before the glowing stops and Izuku was no way to be seen. Young Midoriya, where are you?" All Might yells, worryingly as he saw Izuku isn't there anymore and he isn't the only one. "Yo, Midoriya, where are you?" Kirishima yells. "Izuku, you can come out now." Ochako yells, clearly worried as Mina is too. "Yeah, you got us." Mina yells, as her worried was getting to her. "Midoriya." The other began yelling, calling out for Izuku, worried about where he had vanished. Unaware to any of them, they were being watched by two people. "Sorry guys, but we need him for what's going on. I promise I'll bring him back in 3 seconds, but to him, it'll be 2 days," a female says, looking down at the worried people. "Are you sure we need all 5 of them?" The female says, turning to someone standing next to her. She was a fightin' blonde 16-year-old girl with really big brown eyes and short honey blonde hair, some of which were tied up in braids resembling a crown. She made on lots of mascara. She also had round teeth and a sight gap, but in a charming way. She wore a sleeveless dark blue leotard, with several glowing blue clocks on her body, a light blue jumpsuit beneath, dark blue boots, with matching dark blue gloves, a blue cape with a hood, golden shoulder pads, with matching golden gauntlets and a golden helmet. The person next to her nodded. "Yes, 4 are already there. All that is left is the young Izuku I've met personally." A man spoke. "Trust me, young Renette, this is something that is needed to be done, for the sake of not only the timeline but the space-time continuum." The man says. He had fair skin, gray eyes, and black hair. He wore a white lab coat over a white shirt with a brown vest and black tie, black pants, and black shoes. He also wore goggles with green lenses around his neck. The girl sighs and nods, knowing what he was saying. "Okay, I can trust you on this, Paradox." The girl, now known as Renette, says as the man, now known as Paradox, smiles. "Good," Paradox says before he pulls out a brown paper bag from his coat and takes out something from the bag. "Gum," he asks, offering Renette an orange gum. Renette looks at the gum before turning to Paradox and shaking her head. "I'm good." Renette politely declines as they teleport away, going to their next target. End Ost. Location, unknown. Time, unknown. In an unknown field, we see that orange glow appear and Izuku comes out of it, who had his eyes closed. Once the orange glow fades away, Izuku started feeling raindrops hitting him. He opens his eyes and sees where he is and was utterly confused by this. What the? Where am I? How'd I end up in a field? Izuku asks as he looks around, just wondering how he got there. Maybe it was a quirk. No time to think about it. I need to get back to UA. I'm sure everyone's worried about me, he says. He looks in the distance and sees a city. There, he yells as he puts up his hood and places on his goggles before blasts off to the city. He reaches said city, but to his shock, confusion, and surprise, the city he was in was one he had never seen before. It was all futuristic like, but it felt familiar to him in some way. What the? I've never been here before, Izuku says, confused as he looks around, running as he tries to see if he could get some help. When he reached a busy part of the city, he bumped into someone, nearly knocking them down. Sorry about that, man. I didn't mean to. Izuku quickly apologizes to the person he bumped into. Sorry, gotta go, he yells before he takes off running. Hey, wait. Izuku hears the person yell at him. But why did it sound eerily familiar to him? Sorry, but I got to go, Izuku yells, picking up his pace as he runs. He ran for a bit before he felt something behind him. He looks back to see what it was and was shocked at what he saw. What the? He utters in shock. It was a large grayish-black like humanoid with white veins running along its body. It had several sharp teeth and a mouth with a wide smile. And his hair was somewhat similar to Izuku's, only it seemed to move on its own, and whatever this thing was chasing after Izuku. Izuku sees the humanoid was gaining on him, so he decides to up his speed. He runs around the city, not only to lose whatever was currently chasing him but also to look for some heroes to help him out. He ran up buildings, took sharp corners and turns, and even used some of the debris to outpace the humanoid, but it stayed on him through it all. Hey you, I want to talk to you. Izuku hears the humanoid yells and he frowns. Deciding enough was enough, he runs up a building's side with the humanoid chasing after him. Izuku was the one who was running up it while the gray humanoid was climbing up it with its hands. When the two finally reached the top of the building, this was when the image freezes. Izuku was in his running stance while the gray humanoid was in the air, ready to land. So, here we are again. You're all caught up to speed on what's happening. Now you understand why am I in a different place I've never seen before and why there's a grayish-black monster chasing me. You want to know how this ends? Yeah, me too. This scene resumes as Izuku continues running away from the gray humanoid, who lands onto the roof and continues to give chase on the rooftop. Izuku frowns since his plan on losing this thing was failing until he sees someone on the rooftop with them. He took a closer look at his outfit and saw that it looked like a hero's outfit, and thought they were a pro hero. He runs up to them. Hey you, sorry to bother you, but can you tell me where am I? Izuku yells, hoping that this hero knew where he was. The hero turns to him and Izuku stops in shock at who was in front of him. This person was wearing a kimono ninjutsu outfit, with red high-top sneakers that had iron soles. His shoulders and elbows were covered with metal guards, and on both of his hands were iron Dainese fingerless gloves. And on his face, in addition to the mouth guard that was on his face, this person also had on a black mask. What shocked Izuku wasn't the fact that the person in front of him wasn't a hero. He was looking at another Izuku. But this Izuku had a scar running across his left eye and his hair was only green, no blue highlights like his was. This Izuku was looking at Izuku with the same shocked expression the Izuku we know had. Who? Izuku began speaking as the Izuku in front of him was about to speak. The other Izuku says as he lifts his finger up, and Izuku is doing the same. Q. The two Izuku yells, pointing at one another. Is it someone who wears a suit and cape, flying around a city and watching over those below? Another voice speaks as footage begins showing various people, all in various colorful outfits. Is it someone who has special abilities, gifts and uses them to do good? Another voice asks, with this one sounding similar to the first two as the projector viewed footage of several people wielding incredible powers such as super strength, giantification, water manipulation, super speed, and other incredible abilities. Is it someone who upholds the law? Another voice asks, again sounding similar to the first one as footage displayed these superpowers begin enforcing the law on criminals. Is it someone who goes out of their way to deliver justice to those who break them? Or is it someone who goes out of their way, with their body moving on it, and protects those who can't, with or without special powers? Another voice asks, with the footage showing a boy with green hair running toward a villain that was made of slime as buildings around were ablaze. The answer is simply it's all of them. One last voice says, but instead of sounding like the first four, it sounds feminine as the footage cuts back and the dark room returns to its previous darkness. A hero is someone who doesn't let fear take over when faced with immediate danger. The first voice spoke as a light-furred and a new brand of footage began to display on the screen, with a clip of someone looking at a hulking figure that stood on top of a part of a collapsed building while the person didn't look at all frightened. In fact, they looked determined at the challenge ahead as their cape swayed along the wind. A hero is someone who does the right things in a moment, even if that moment is not one for the faint of hearts. One of the voices says with the footage showing someone who looked like he had to do what was right, even if it broke his moral code as he fired a blast of energy toward his opponent who was caught by it, and destroyed by it as the hero floats in the air, looking destroyed at what he had done. for those who are in need. One of the voices says as footage was shown, displaying various clips of heroes protecting or rescuing people in need, such as one clip showing a person in a spacesuit destroying a piece of debris with their power. A hero is someone who sacrifices it all to save one. A clip of footage was displaying two people, a man and a woman in similar outfits protecting unarmed civilians from a towering, hulking figure who had this deranged smirk as this figure brought up their large fist in the air above the man and woman who pushed a civilian out of the way with their power as the figure brings down to the two and the clip cuts to black. Oz time, 50. But not all heroes are the same. The feminine-sounding voice speaks as the projector furs back to life, each having their own differences. One of the voices spoke, their own drives. Another one of the similar-sounding voices spoke, goals. Another one of the similar-sounding voices spoke, and reasons why they chose to be a hero can all be reasons. One of the voices spoke, but in some cases, some find that they have the same reason as to why they want to be heroes. One of the first voices spoke as the footage showed brief headshots of one individual, a green-haired, emerald-eyed, freckled-faced boy who was smiling brightly to the camera. The headshot changed to 6 different shots. The first 5 were for this boy, but he wore different outfits in the shots. Few Eddie in 3 different hoodies with one of those shots. His hair was different as it had blue highlights in it. One of the shots where he didn't wear a hoodie, he wore an outfit that resembled that of a ninja of the old era would wear, as this image of the boy. He had a scar over his right eye, and the last shot wasn't of him. No, it was of a girl who looked a lot like the boy. A hero ... can be someone who has no powers. A clip of a blue burr was running across green grassy plains where there were various sized hills, cliffs, and loops across this grassy plain. A group of people. The footage displayed 4 figures flying over a building, all 4 figures looking the same, except they had on different colored masks over their eyes and each had different weapons. Or someone who doesn't wear a cape or a mask. The feminine voice spoke as a clip was shown of someone standing on a ledge of a skyscraper, looking down to a city as rain was pouring down from the heavens. A hero ... is everyone, with the right mindset, and the right drive. One of the voices speaks as a clip is shown of a large man standing by a bright yellow light, with his hands on his hips and smiling as 5 hands were reaching for this man. Because ... that's what a hero is. Again, one of the voices spoke as 5 different symbols flashed on the screen. One was of a green hourglass, one was 2 red stars, one was a symbol of a flower that resembled a cacao, another was for a red monster face, and one of 2 large white eyes and a mouth of razor-shaped teeth and a long tongue. And we strive for that. 2 of the voices speak, regardless of why. 2 more of the voices speak, or how we do it. The feminine voice speaks, because we're heroes. All of the voices spoke in unity as the projector furs to life one last time. And right now, this universe ... is in need of some. One of the voices says as an image was shown of 5 individuals looking at a futuristic city that looked like it was run by a tyrant.